Hello everybody, welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news. I told you to be calm and yet here we are doing our first late night show of the summer transfer window. It's 11 p.m. in the UK and the Newcastle Football Club have just bid big for Sesko. Huge update coming in the last hour. I've resisted going live, but so many people have messaged me. I feel like I'm here to do Manchester United's job, really, which is to try and calm the fan base and give it some, perspective. We're not out of this race. We're not out of this race. Some people are saying we should go out of the race because the numbers are too big. I'm a little bit confused. I'm a little bit confused here as to why we're out of the race and why the price is too big. 90 million euros is 69 million pounds in this circumstance because it's 80 million euros plus 10 and 80 million euros is 69 million pounds. So don't get lost in the euros nonsense. People are saying it's time to walk away. 80 million euros is 69.6 million pounds. That is what Newcastle have offered. 69.6 plus another 8 in add-ons. And people are going, 90 million euros is too much, walk away. Newcastle have offered 80 million euros plus 10 in add-ons, which is 69 million pounds plus 8 in add-ons. It's not walk away. It's not walk away. So first of all, start doing your calculations and stop working in euros and add-ons. It's fine. It's fine. And United can pay that price. What's happening here, though, and I have to say this is where it gets confusing, is that Newcastle are clearly and quite concerningly willing to try and blow us out of the water on big bids. And interestingly, you'd question what Man United's strategy is because Leipzig are going to want big money. And if they get a bidding war and keep pushing the price up, which Newcastle can afford to pay because they're about to sell Isak, what was the strategy we had? Somebody is going to end up with egg on their face. Newcastle are going to look stupid because they've spent big money and not been able to get anybody. Or Man United are going to look stupid for getting into a race without a sword. And it will be embarrassing. Because let's be honest, this summer transfer window, Newcastle have been turned down more than a volume knob on a radio that's playing Ollie Murs. So they have been rejected a lot. And we have to, certainly take that on board. But we surely have a plan. We surely have a plan. That's all I can say. But let me just give you the news, actually, because a lot of people are saying, well, what is the news? So there's numerous bits here. So first of all, let's start off with where it all started. Basically, David Ornstein saying that Newcastle have made an improved bid for Benjamin Sesko. New offer is worth at least 80 million euros after positive talks between the club and the player. Nothing agreed, but Leipzig currently favour Newcastle. No proposal from Manchester United. Then Fabrizio Romano says Newcastle have sent an official bid to Leipzig worth 90 million euros package, 80 million euros plus 10. No decision from the player. Manchester United confirmed again to Leipzig that they will bid if Sesko picks them. So Man United are playing a power play. Leipzig want us to bid with Newcastle to get a bidding war going. United are saying we won't bid until Sesko says he wants us. Sesko may never say he wants us, by the way. Florian Plettenberg, who's in Germany, as is Leipzig, says Newcastle are now offering 90 million euros in total, 80 plus 10. However, Tuesday could be decisive. Newcastle want a decision, but Sesko has not communicated his choice. Manchester United are still there. Craig Hope, Daily Mail, says it is expected that tomorrow Sesko will make his decision. I think that is sort of where we are. Newcastle are pushing very hard. The unknown is what Man United's next move is going to be. Or in fact, the unknown is, what is our move? It's not about what the next move is what our play is. So, look, a lot of people have been asking me for my opinion. I've gone live. Maybe people don't want it. Maybe people just want to share the community and get their comments in, and I'm sure that's great. My stance is, when I saw the David Ornstein tweet at 10 o'clock, and Matt and Beth were messaging me saying, this is going on, I said it's not really enough to go live on. We've just done the 8 o'clock show. I don't feel anything's there. I don't think anything's changed. Newcastle have put another bid in, which I would expect. United haven't reacted, and Sesko hasn't made his mind up. I think we are exactly where we were. What surprises me is that, well, look, first of all, honestly, I don't feel any different than I did on the 8 o'clock show. I still think he's coming to Man United. I think Newcastle are having a bloody good go, and I still think he's coming to Man United because, and I'll explain it again, why the bloody hell are we in this deal on a whim? Why have we got into this race if we didn't think we could win it? Why have we told David Ornstein last week that Sesko's our priority if we're not his? We know Newcastle have got loads of money. We know they could bid us out the water. So we must have been given an indication that he wants to come to us. So I'm still very confident on that. If we don't get him, then it's open season. On Barada, Wilcox, Sir Jim, the Glazers, of course it is. But it's not open season at the moment. We haven't lost this race. We haven't played our cards yet. I'll tell you what this is for me. This is a game of poker where Newcastle have played a really good hand and everyone's going, you're in trouble. And I'm going, we haven't even shown you our cards yet. Is there a hand that beats their hand? Well, yeah, there is, but they've got a really good one. I think we've got a hand to play here. And we better, I'll tell you what'll really piss me off is if we go and fold without showing our cards. And I know I'm talking in poker talk here, but folding means you don't show your hand. You just walk away. If we do that, I wonder what we're playing at. We've got to have a play here. But to all those people saying we should walk away is not worth it, bloody get yourself back to school and do some GCSE maths. We should walk away from a 90 million euro package. It's 80 million plus add-ons, and it's euros. It's 69 million pounds. We always knew it was going to be around that because that's what it's always been quoted at. Why are people saying walk away for 69 million pounds? I don't get it. Why? Why should we walk away? And also, remember, it has been reported by Romano and others that there is a special clause between Sesko and Leipzig that if it's deemed to be a special club, that price is reduced even better. So people are now saying, let's go for Watkins. You know what I think you are? I think you're scared. I think you're allowing your fear to cloud your judgment. And you know what you're doing? You're doing what Arsenal fans do. You're going, we never wanted him anyway. He's shit. Stay the course. Stay the course. This is like Braveheart when William Wallace is at the front and everyone's fighting and then some cowards piss off and leave them shorter. We're in this fight. Stop backing out. You're all bloody excited 3 days ago. We're in this fight. We're still in it. I'm not, let Newcastle be Kevin Keegan. We're not bloody Newcastle. We're Manchester United. We're still in this fight. We've not played our cards yet. Why are people backing out? Why are people saying walk away? Why are people saying he's not worth it? It's the same bloody price we were quoted last week. He's always been 69 million. I remember doing jokes about 69 million last week. So why are people saying walk away? Because you're scared. You're scared. You think we're going to lose, so you're trying to save face. You're saying things like, oh, he ain't worth it. Go and get a midfielder instead. Let Newcastle have him with his 13 Bundesliga goals. Come on, hypocrites. A few days ago, it was let's go and get him. Let's go and get him. This is the player United want. Go and get him. Simple as that. We're not backing out. You're not the CEO. I'm not the CEO. We're not backing out. We've told the world we want Sesko. If we lose, we're going to have to, accept that we've lost to a club that's been ghosted more time than than October 31st. I preferred the volume one better. We're going to have to take that defeat. But we haven't played our cards and people are panicking. People are panicking and we haven't even played our cards. Every single update for the last few days has been Newcastle are pushing hard. Newcastle are offering the money. Newcastle want an answer. Newcastle want Sesko. And every single update in the small print has gone, Man United are still there. Man United still want him. And until I don't see that, we're still in this fight. We're still in for him. And you know what? I think this is a great way of looking at it. How would you feel if we were in Newcastle's shoes and Liverpool were in our shoes? So we're both going for a striker. Liverpool are staying quiet. They're not doing anything other than we are interested, and we're going, we'll offer you this, we'll offer you that. We really want you. We really offer you. We really want you. And I think in that case, that's a concern. Welcome to everyone who's come over from the Football Terrace. I know Terry was live a little bit earlier. I'm on his channel tomorrow for hot takes. So, yeah, I was just saying, look, we did an 8 o'clock show earlier. We know Newcastle are trying hard. We know this is an exciting deal. I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. You know, the best victories are the ones where you can smell the loss. You know, the best win I ever experienced as a Man United fan was, you know, into stoppage time against Bayern Munich in '99. And it's the best victory I've ever tasted because we were so close to defeat. This is a transfer where Newcastle are trying really hard, and it will make it all the better if we can get it done. And I'm invested in that. I'm trusting United on this because it will be massively embarrassing if we don't do it. We'll have been schooled by Newcastle, and we'll have to take that defeat. But as I said, I see nothing different from what I said at 8 o'clock. I'm calm. Sesko's not made his mind up. Newcastle are bidding. They're aggressive. They're trying to get it done. They're setting deadlines. You know, Leipzig want to work with them because they're going to pay big money. But ultimately, the thing that cost Arsenal with Sesko could be our friend. Sesko respected Leipzig, and he wouldn't go on strike, and he wouldn't push the price down like Gyökeres did. He has a good relationship with Leipzig. If he says, I want to go to Man United, are Leipzig going to start blocking him? That could be the play. The play could well be Firvel, as Linda says, and the RB group. The play here that I think United are playing is you get Sesko, you get Sesko. And I think that's what we're doing. We have to have a play. So I am going to choose positivity at this point. I reckon United still get the deal done. All I'm saying is Jackson better stay away from our club, says 23 official. Callum says, Mark, if we're to give them a player as part of the deal, who would you prefer, Rasmus or Joshua Zirkzee? I mean, that's still possible, Callum, and nobody's even talking about it. At the end of the day, I think it would have to be Rasmus because I don't think Xerxes going anywhere. Out and About with Job says, people need to calm down. We have the pounds to compete and we might not need to. We know the price for the lad that went to Liverpool and still went for him as well. Out and About with Job. It's a very, very good point as well. And also, the loudest person in the room isn't always the best. Newcastle are being very loud. They're leaking a lot to the press. They're telling everybody everything. Man United are staying very, very quiet. If we win this, we look smooth. We look really smooth. If we lose it, we look like prats. But if we win it, we look really smooth. I think we have a wild card to offer Leipzig in the form of Rasmus, says Nick P. Diamond hands and stone face. Don't give in to pressure of Newcastle. He wants United, says Z3. They're pushing and pushing for more. Look at how Arsenal took their time and the other team knew how desperate they were. Are we that desperate? We're scared of changes, says the Moose One. Do you think we will match Newcastle's bid if Sesko chooses us or go lower, says Rangnick Reds? Well, this is an interesting point because this is where I have to read this from David Ornstein and say, what are your thoughts on this? Benjamin Sesko is wanted by Manchester United, but a proposal has yet to arrive from Old Trafford, and the figures they have indicated a willingness to pay are lower than what Newcastle are willing to pay. This is why, you know, again, I don't know what United's play is. It might be a shit one. I don't know what it is. I don't know how that works. I don't know how you can go to Leipzig and say we're going to pay less than Newcastle and get the player. I don't know. But having said that, the special relationship might be something to do with that as well. Look, Leipzig are going to... Look, if I'm Leipzig, right, and I know that if Sesko says Man United are one of the special clubs and I've got to sell him for 60 million, but Newcastle aren't one of the special clubs and they're willing to give me 69, sounds good. I'm going to want him to go to Newcastle because I get £9 million more. So, of course, Leipzig are going to want him to go to Newcastle. But Man United, why are we offering less? There must be a reason for that. And we have to wait and see it develop. Do you think we'll match Newcastle's bid? That was Rangnick Reds. I really want Sesko to come to United and Bruno in yesterday's game, says Callum. Don't be too confident, Mark. This will blow out on your face sooner, bro. We need a midfielder to make our attack function, and instead of Sesko with no service, says Jocelyn. Mate, it doesn't... How does it blow up in my face? I'm not the CEO. I'm not the owner. I'm just a fan who trusts that United have a plan. And if he goes to Newcastle, I will applaud Newcastle. And they will banter the shit out of us, but I will applaud them and move on to criticising our club for something that is inexplicable. And that is why I don't think that's going to happen. I'm convinced he will end up at Man United because I believe we have a plan and I believe that Sesko wants to come to us. Whether you want to believe that or not, that's up to you. But it doesn't blow up in my face because I'm not the person who is negotiating this deal. Sesko is not a 90 million player. No, he's not, Francisco. I mean, look, you know what? It's late. I'm not going to be live for long. But some people are thick as shit. And I'm sorry to be that blunt. I don't like saying that. But some people are thick as shit. We're not paying £90 million. Newcastle are not paying £90 million. They're not even paying €90 million. They're paying €80 million, and then there's €10 million in add-ons. And €80 million is £69 million. People are literally adding 21 million quid on. It's £69 million. That's the bid. Nothing more, nothing less. There are add-ons, but it's £69 million. People are all over X going, we should walk away. We shouldn't pay £90 million. It's way too much. And you know what? I think it's the way brains work. I don't think people understand currency. And I don't think people understand exchange rates. And they're quoting £90 million. It's £69 million. It's less than what Liverpool paid for Ekitike by quite a bit. Newcastle offering the price the clubs have agreed behind the scenes. Sesko agrees to United and we pay up. Deal done. High press football only works with a brick wall in centre midfield. No point getting Sesko for the graveyard shifts, as Keel. That's a completely separate argument, mate. I'm not here to discuss that. That's more of an 8 o'clock show comment because that's a community thing. I'm here to talk about Newcastle bidding and whether Man United should bid. You know, fan theory that we should go for a midfielder instead of a striker. You're not on the board. You're not a CEO. It's just an opinion. We're not doing that. We've publicly said we want a striker, and that striker is Sesko. Whether you think we should go for a midfielder or whether I think we should go for a midfielder is completely and utterly irrelevant because we're not doing that. I wonder if we are one of those special clubs since Newcastle is increasing the offer, says Tony. I suspect that's our play. Kieran Paris says 68 million plus 8 million in add-ons for 13 goals in 33 games. Another prospect player. We've learnt absolutely nothing if we bid that. Kieran, I don't want to sit you down, but you might want to go and have a look at what Isak's record was in Spain before they bought him. We're not a serious football club. We're a serious business that is also involved in football. A new keeper is worth more points than a striker, says Pete. Read what I said to Kale. I understand the need for a striker, but I'd rather loan someone and focus on CM. Read what I said to Pete. It's the snail. We should not walk away yet. Newcastle tactic clearly to drive the price up to prices out. Newcastle showing everyone they're as desperate as Bonnie Blue, says Swanee. Our tactic is wanting Sesko to say he wants United. That's all we've got. Surely that's not our plan, says David. Sesko says he wants Man United. He tells Leipzig it's one of the special clubs. We pay 65 million instead of 69. It's not a bad plan. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to come off, but I reckon that could well be the plan. The special club thing is real as well. It came from Fabrizio. And the special club thing is dictated to by Sesko. Potentially lost Sesko because we were on tour. Poor, says Alan. Manchester United Football Club, slow as molasses, says Yasso. I thought it was 65 million plus 5 million add-ons for Sesko's preferred choice. Up the Reds, says 23 official. Why people are so obsessed with 80, 90, 100 million euros? It's not like you have to slap the whole thing down in one suitcase. It's all spread out. I don't know. Nick, I really don't know. I don't know. I find it really strange the amount of people who are saying we should walk away whilst we're basically walking away from a £69 million deal. Why? You know, they weren't saying that 3 days ago. I don't get it. I don't get, like, surely we should have walked away from Mbeumo for 65. No, that was a little bit too much as well. We're not paying 100 million. We're not paying 90 million. We're not paying 80 million. It's 69 million pounds. I don't know what people thought we were paying, but it was always going to be that. This is the choice the club have made. I back it. Let's get the deal done. I don't think some of our fans realise how big of a failure not signing Sesko is. We lost a transfer battle that we should have won, have no striker 2 weeks into the Prem and not even a centre midfielder or a goalkeeper, says Andre. And I think this is a great point as well. People say walk away like we haven't just wasted the last 2 weeks again. Like, we haven't got time to be walking away from deals, actually. We haven't got time to be losing deals either. Newcastle offers entire fee up front in one payment, says Terra. We've got to have a play. You're panicking, I'm calm. Exactly, we're Manchester United, says the Moose One, with a demand regardless of Champions League. If Sesko wants to come, then he has to say so. It's hard to say what we need now because everyone has an issue with any opinion. The only person who should have a say is Amorim, says the Moose One. 23 official, welcome to the Members Club. Donnarumma reported price is £30 million, says Matt. We're not here to talk about Donnarumma, are we? And I think Donnarumma's going to run his contract down. Rob McCormack says, if he has indicated he likes us, won't we have bid? Look, you're asking me to answer something I can't answer. What I can say is, my opinion is that United have got a play here, and United's play is based on confidence. I have never known Man United let David Ornstein put something out that we only want a player and still be getting exclusives. Like, if David Ornstein's put that out there and it's not true, he'll never get anything from Man United again. And he's not that type of journalist. So he's been told and verified that Man United are going all in for Sesko. Pray tell me, when have we gone all in yet? We haven't. That was the update from David Ornstein at the end of last week. Man United are all in on Sesko. Call me naive, but I think that's quite a big statement and we haven't seen the play yet. So until I've seen it, I'm still convinced we're going to get him. There's a lot of people giving up though. I wouldn't like to be in a fight with you lot. Not against you. I mean, like, if you're on my team, I'd turn around and you'd all legged it. If Sesko goes to Newcastle, then it's the worst outcome for Newcastle and Man United. Man United lose out on a striker, Newcastle lose Isak, and Newcastle and Man United strengthen Liverpool. Surely Newcastle understand not to strengthen Liverpool more if they aspire to win the Premier League. I don't think they give a shit, Harshad. I think they know they get... Look, Isak's going to Liverpool no matter what. That's got nothing to do with Sesko. He's going to Liverpool. It's not, no, Aditio, it's not Watkins it is. This is why I didn't want to go live tonight. People are just overreacting. Like, God. And people used to call us the negative stand. Like, people are really overreacting. Walk away. We've lost. It's £90 million. It's not £90 million. It's 69.
Newcastle United submit a new €90 million bid for Benjamin Sesko after positive talks with RB Leipzig and the 22-year-old striker today. A growing confidence for Newcastle that the player will be swayed and will join them. Still reports from the likes of Jan Furatov that Man United are a preferred destination, but the player has to be convinced. The club will submit a bid if he chooses them. A big update from Fabrizio Romano as well, but the deal is getting closer. No total agreement as of yet, but the deal is progressing. Hit the like button. Make sure you are subscribing. This is big news here tonight. Let's do this. Had a little feeling this was going to come tonight. I was going to do a match reaction to the Liverpool game, but I've not been feeling very well. A little bit of a cold coming. It explains the sore neck and the sore throat, actually. I thought I'm going to go to bed. But I saw an update from Craig Hope. I saw an update from Jan Furatov. And I just knew, I absolutely knew that something in relation to from Ornstein was going to come tonight in regards to Benjamin Šeško. We're going to break that deal down with you all now. We're going to go through it in detail to get your views, your opinions, and thoughts and feelings on it. But as confirmed now by Fabrizio Romano as well, a 90 million euro offer has been made for Benjamin Šeško to make him a Newcastle United player. Thank you, Luke, for encouraging everybody to hit that like button. It's very, very important that you guys do that. It really is. Evening to Lou. Hope you are well and hope you are good. So I'm going to do, Lou, actually. You sent me that message earlier. You're a moderator, but I'm going to make you... I just removed you as a moderator. All right, hang on. And I'm going to add you back as a managing moderator, which means you can... Okay, it doesn't... Yeah, you can do a few extra bits and pieces. There we go. If Rob Ladd's there, we'll get him moderated up tonight as well, people. But look, from my point of view and perspective, there's a lot to break down in this because it is a complicated deal. And it all depends on which way you want to look at this. A few of you are saying that Ben Jacobs has said it's a done deal. I haven't seen that from Ben unless he's live on TalkSport or something like that, and he's come out and said it. But this is what has been said by David Ornstein tonight, who broke the news. He said RB Leipzig received improved offer from Newcastle United for Benjamin Šeško. It says the opening bid, as we know, was 80. It was 75 plus 5. He says the new deal will be at least 80 million. Now, Fabrizio has said it is 80 million euros plus 10. I think that's also been confirmed by Jan Fjørtoft as well now. So it's a 90 million euro bid in totality for the player. Positive talks. And this is the bit that is worrying for me because I want Benjamin Šeško, but very, very positive for Newcastle. Positive talk to the player. And Craig Hope earlier on today, and I'm going to go and get those quotes from him because I think it's very important to bring this whole story together this evening for you. But what Craig Hope earlier on this evening said is that Newcastle were pushing hard to agree a deal with Leipzig for Benjamin Šeško after receiving encouragement today that he wants to join. It's not known what his camp have communicated to Manchester United, and all the outcomes are possible. So the one thing that they haven't done yet, and this is where the door isn't shut for Man United, is Šeško's camp have told a bit more encouraging towards joining Newcastle. Thus the next bid. We know what Newcastle's strategy is. Get the bid in, get a deal agreed with Leipzig, and that might sway the player. The player might go, do you know what? You've got the bid in first. You've got the agreement done first. I'm coming to you. That is their strategy. Where United are essentially saying, listen, Šeško, you want to play for us, you prioritize us. As soon as you prioritize us, we will put the bid in. We have told RB Leipzig, though, today, and Fabrizio had just confirmed this. Man United have confirmed again to Leipzig they will make a bid, and we have said we would match the offer of Newcastle United if and when the player agrees to sign for us. So I do think it's such an interesting scenario. You've got this element still that hasn't changed now for 3 or 4 days. United won't bid until the player agrees to join, but we have told Leipzig that we will. The player hasn't yet made his mind up because he's worried that Man United won't bid. And I get that. He doesn't want to commit to Man United and then we pivot away from it. It makes absolute sense. It makes absolute sense that the player's sitting there and saying, listen, if we commit to Man United, that's going to make global news. If Man United then pivot away, find somebody else, or decide they want a midfielder instead, or, you know, they go, oh, actually, we've got to listen to Staffy and go buy that, get that Belieber deal done now, which they might do because it makes logical sense. Then Šeško's got to go back to Newcastle with his tail between his legs, or maybe by then Newcastle United have signed somebody else. So the situation is in a very, very fragile situation for, I think, all included. But what is telling tonight as a United fan, and we can't ignore this and we shouldn't ignore this, is that Newcastle United are growing in confidence. They've received much more encouragement from RB Leipzig and from the player this evening. And I think that is massively significant. Wow. And a massive update just in here from Ben Jacobs that we need to bring you live on the air. He says Newcastle United confident on reaching an agreement with Leipzig as revealed earlier. Improved bid made over 80 million with an agreement between the clubs close, as per the title of this video. Newcastle pushing for a quick answer from Šeško, not a saga they want to drag on beyond a matter of days. No formal United bid yet. So listen, Newcastle doing all the legwork here, Newcastle doing all the pushing, and that does make me nervous. I can't sit here and lie. I can't sit here and not tell the truth. I am nervous. I'm feeling a little bit woo. I'm feeling a little bit way, because we haven't dropped this new graphic on the show yet, but I get a feeling anytime soon this is dropping. And I don't want that dropping for Man United. Imagine the first one that drops live while we're on the air. Imagine it, right? And it's my club losing out. Do you understand how that's going to make me feel? But look, I want to get your thoughts. I want to get your feelings. I want to get your opinion on this in the comment section below. Rob's in the chat, is it? My man in the chat. Leave a comment, Rob. Maybe I can see it. Rob, where is Rob? Where are you, Robert? I want to get this done, actually. I want to get this done.
This is Talk the Devils, the athletic show dedicated to Manchester United. Coming up, you'll hear from Ruben Amorim in conversation with our very own Laurie and Andy amongst the press pack over in America, talking about optimism, setting new standards, and his relationship with Sir Jim Ratcliffe. The draw against Everton overnight was enough to crown Manchester United champions of the Premier League Summer Series. We'll get into the details of that, including a debut for Bryan Mbeumo, and we'll also have the very latest on the chase for Benjamin Sesko. But of course, where else do we start than introducing everyone's favourite couple? It's Laurie and Andy. How are you, lads?
We're good, thanks.
Yeah. Greetings from Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah. As you can see, we're a suitable distance apart this time.
Yeah, still fairly close. We had quite a lot of messages about that in the comments on YouTube in particular, so I've enjoyed reading all of those. Thank you very much. It's gone from a work trip, Laurie, to a holiday, to now a honeymoon, apparently.
All I'll say is that I thought, for visual purposes, we had to get that close, but I do appreciate, on reflection, some of the viewers, I know podcast listeners might not have any idea what we're talking about, but the people that watch on YouTube were a little bit perturbed by how close I was to Andy, and then when I looked at him whilst he was talking, even more so.
Sure.
So hopefully this one is a more comfortable viewing for people.
Get out of my face. Someone's just come up to me in Atlanta and get out of my fucking face. I'm like, I'm just going up the world's longest escalator to Laurie's hotel. But riding the Atlanta subway, the Marta is pretty interesting. Like last night, there was a guy just singing a beautiful Doobie Brothers Michael McDonald song. Sounded fantastic. So I've met some characters here.
Was that supposed to be an American accent, by the way?
Well, yeah, it was in America.
It was very cockney, wasn't it?
You want from Stoke,
Australia.
was it? Get out of my face.
Yeah, there was a bit of Australian in there. No Portuguese in there, but there's a bit of Portuguese coming up in our podcast because you two have been in conversation with Ruben Amorim, teeing up the new season, really, with the press back over in America. I mean, Andy, could you set the scene for us first before we get into what he's had to say? What was this conversation? How did it come about and where did it take place?
So traditionally at the end of the pre-season tour, the travelling journalist would sit down with the manager. That's pretty normal. And I think 7 or 8 of us did that at the Chicago Fire's training facility. She had a backdrop of downtown Chicago. And Ruben Amorim, he came in and sat within the group, and then we spoke to him for 20 minutes. Every journalist asked at least one question. And I think the feeling afterwards, and it was certainly my initial feeling, and I tweeted this, was he comes across exceptionally well. He's a very good communicator. He looked healthy, he looked really motivated, and he said all of the right things. So that couldn't have gone any better. Clearly, results will be how he will be judged, not how he talks. But I felt that he had a real handle on things. And I don't know what you felt, Laurie, but I came out of it feeling if I was one of his players, I'd really want to succeed for him.
Totally agree with you. I mean, it's obviously one thing, I suppose, for a manager to say compelling things in a press conference and then to journalists, and then another to kind of get players on side with you and kind of make sure that they're doing what you want them to do in training and then in games. But I certainly came away from it thinking, I can see why United stuck by him at the end of last season and even appointed him in the first place, because he's certainly got very strong rhetoric and not even just sort of saying the right things, but he's pretty open. He sort of says more than the right things in a way, and it kind of really, I guess, breaks any kind of barrier between you and him, and the fact that he's kind of able to give real detail on relationships that we'll get into, or kind of aspects of the club that kind of just humanise him and make you feel, okay, this guy has a real sort of emotion and touch to him. So I was kind of came away from it thinking, okay, I can see why United stuck by him, and hopefully if it's anything like the way he talks, then United will be okay this season.
This is like an awkward second date with you two. You can't possibly look at one another, can you?
Even my wife's been getting on my case about it. She's saying, like, you look like dad and son. Okay. You know what I mean? Get home now.
Yeah, that's probably better than some of the other suggestions. But anyway, let's hear from Ruben Amorim. He spoke to you two and others about last season, the disappointment of the way it all went, the fact that he had to prioritise the Europa League final in the final months of the season and basically just wait it out, which it felt like exactly what he was doing. But there is a little bit more optimism, it sounds like, heading into this new campaign.
How are you feeling about this season, Ruben, going into it?
Confidence. When I see team training and team playing, my humor, you call it humor, it goes with the team. If I feel that everything is aligned, I feel more excited. If I feel more excited, I see more video, I see more football, I have more ideas. So I'm really confident in this moment. It's not the case of not knowing what to do to change that love. I felt last season in some moments I just need to survive to the end, because everything I need to do, I will need to do with a new start, with more time, with some changes that I cannot do now. And that is even people around the staff and players. So my goal in that moment, 3 months to the end, was trying to win the Europa League. And we struggled a lot, trying to save players to play 60 minutes. And you cannot do it in Manchester United. You cannot think like that. I had that feeling during the season that I'm so frustrated, I cannot do nothing. And I acknowledge that, so I have to wait. And to wait, and being manager of Manchester United is like just like going to a fight with my hands like this, So that was the frustration.
Did you have conversations with the club at that period? Reassurances from them, because you talk about surviving. It felt maybe fragile at that point, and you might even think you had to walk away at that point.
No, walk away is more an ego thing. I'm like that. If you saw Sporting, I won the league, and we had the second place in the next year. In the third year, we were fourth in the league. When things go bad, I put my place, because it's maybe an ego thing. Maybe really romantic about things. If you try to remember one team, one big team, massive team that lost so many games and the manager kept their job, you will not find it. So that show more than words that they support me.
It's funny because he touched there, Laurie, on a key point that someone got in touch about on email. It was Paul. He said if he had the opportunity, he would have asked Ruben Amorim, do you think you're fortunate to still be at the club considering the results under you last season? And basically, it sounds like he thinks he probably is.
I think he probably would have answered that in the affirmative. I mean, in that answer, we did question him about the, speculation or the kind of reports. It was more solid than that. He obviously offered to walk away or put his position, as he puts it, to the club, is something that he did when he was in charge of Sporting, and they'd sold a few players and they were in fourth position in the league. And I think he called it an ego thing. So, the idea being that, perhaps you should actually look beyond your ego and think what's the best thing for the club and can we get through this period. So I think, felt he wanted to sort of put that to United. If you don't think I'm the right guy, I will walk away. And so I think, to the listener's question, I think he would have answered that quite openly and basically agreeing with you, because there was no question that was off the agenda. He answered everything and more so. And I think on his own position, certainly he went into detail that was kind of greater than perhaps you would have expected. And even to the point of us saying to him, were you, doubtful about the backing that you'd receive? And he said, listen, look at what they backed me through. That gives me more confidence than anything they could say to me privately. It was more on me than them, in terms of the potential for this to end. And so I think that, to the listeners' question and to the kind of wider sort of conversation around his future, I think that certainly was something that he has addressed and accepted, that he was at jeopardy at different points, but basically because of his own mindset. And now he did also come to the positive conclusion and say, I want to be here for 20 years. This is something that I am absolutely bought into. And so the right noises were then struck. I don't think you could have a full conversation with him where he's just purely talking about potentially walking away without that then positive slant of, okay, I actually do want to be here for a long time.
And I think he's right. I think if it would have been another huge club, he would have lost his job. I think the media at Real Madrid or Barcelona would have just thought, this is ridiculous, this has gone beyond a joke now. I thought he was very interesting talking about going to Old Trafford and almost knowing that you're going to lose. Also financially, he's financially stable now, but that wasn't always the case when he stopped playing. Him and his wife had, I think he said, an Excel sheet. I thought that was really, really interesting.
Although surely, like, as a player, you'd be okay, wouldn't you?
No, I don't think you would. Okay. I think if you've played in the Portuguese league, and I think he had one year in Saudi, you'd be okay, but I don't think you're having life-changing amounts of money. And if you've not been wise with your money, you definitely wouldn't be okay. And I think that's why him and his wife have sort of planned their incomings and outgoings. But just to get that insight was really good.
Yeah.
Just
and something that he offered up without us having to really probe too much.
Yeah, and I think this all plays into the new decision makers led by Ineos changing everything. So on one hand, you can't change all the staff at the club and then say the rules are different for the manager. They really are sweeping changes, and this isn't for everybody, and players have made reference to that, and a lot of good people have lost their jobs. But this is, look, we're going to do it our way because we think we can get it right our way, and that includes the manager who we are going to back. And again, back to the circumstances why he came, I'm still convinced he was going to go to Manchester City. So Manchester United had to swoop to get him at the time. He didn't want it, but the train came along, he had to jump on it, and it was a hell of a bumpy ride up until now. Hopefully it will get a little bit smoother.
Yeah, let's hope so. It also speaks to his relationship with Sir Jim Ratcliffe as well. We've had a bit of insight as we've gone along about exactly how these two converse, telling each other to F off and other things. But it turns out that they actually have another way of expressing themselves to one another.
We speak on the phone, he send me message, he send me gifts, we call it gifts, jokings, joke. So we have this kind of relationship. I think it's really easy to deal with Jim. Easy in the sense that everything, if you know your stuff, and if you know how to explain any decision, you'll be fine with him. If you try to use some bullshit and big words with him, he's going to knock you. So for me, it's really easy. I will say whatever I need to say with, of course, with a lot of respect, like with everybody. I know that he's the owner of the club. I know my place. But when I need to say something, I will say it naturally, with no bullshit. You can say it. With no bullshit. I'm not around the subject. I'm really direct. I think it's something that he likes a lot.
Yeah, Laurie, gifts. I didn't expect that.
No, nor did we, and we had to sort of check that he had to check with us that he was saying the right thing, because we sort of thought he was saying gifts. Like Ed Woodward used to give Lou Van Gaal a bottle of red wine if he ever beat a top 6 team. We sort of wondered whether Jim had a little sort of understanding with Ruben, but no, it's gifts. So the thought of a 72-year-old petrochemicals billionaire, just like the rest of us, picking out his favourite little looping clip. I mean, I've got a few which I referenced in the written piece that I did. The Great Gatsby, Leonardo DiCaprio raising the the glass of champagne to the camera, or Roy Hodgson sort of, with that look of expectation on his face as England manager, I think against Iceland as England mount an attack, and then ultimately, oh no, they've missed the chance, and you sort of feel like maybe that was one that you got.
That was the Europa League
sent
run,
last
basically,
season,
wasn't
it? Getting all excited. But there's other, the Homer Simpson one, the Jack Nicholson one in The Shining. So I mean, you can obviously have quite a bit of fun with what he might be sending him, and that was tempting to ask Ruben Amorim after the game last night. What as Jim sent you a gif after that one, because it was such a chaotic game against Everton that you sort of wondered whether that was a particular moment for him to get the go into the vault of his favourite gifts. So yeah, I think, but it just sort of shows the human element, right? And the question was, with the expletive within it, in terms of Amorim, Jim, in an interview, I think it was the Times and the Telegraph that they did at the time, saying that if he ever oversteps his expertise, when they have these cups of tea at Carrington, Amorim tells him to fuck off, and then Amorim took that on board and basically said, well, the thing is, with Amorim, with Jim, you don't want to bullshit him. He doesn't like bullshitters, and I don't do that. I go direct. I don't talk around the subject, and I think that's what he likes about me. So I think that's a very revealing window into their relationship, and also the way that Sir Jim Ratcliffe manages the club.
Everyone, welcome back to the Saints transfer show. Not only is it transfer news today, we've got Saints news. We're going to cover everything that happened at the weekend. We're going to cover all the transfer news. We're going to look ahead to the weekend slightly. I've got a guest joining me on the channel later on this week from Wrexham, so proper pre-match show coming your way, and we will get you guys involved in the conversation as well. I will get your comments involved. I want you to be a part of this show as much as I am. I want your opinions, I want your thoughts, but we will start with the Saints news and a bit of reaction to what Will Steele had to say at the weekend after the game against Brighton and Hove Albion. If you were there, we'd love to hear your thoughts on the game at the weekend. I really enjoyed it, actually. It was great to go and get back inside St Mary's. It felt quite tentative, actually, and it definitely felt like there was a little bit of a hangover from last year. Everybody was a bit nervy, even though it was a friendly. So I dread to think what it's going to be like for the first 25 minutes against Wrexham at the weekend. Just hopefully we get that first goal. But the reaction to the game was, I thought the final 25-30 minutes, Saints played really well, and we actually have a manager that makes really good changes. He did make really good changes the weekend. I love the way he switched the back with three centre-backs, went with sort of two full-back stroke wing-backs, tucked Ryan Fraser inside a bit, sort of a bit deeper in midfield, and he added Jay Robinson. I thought was really good. But for me, there was two real big takeaways actually from the game for anybody that wasn't there. I didn't cover it in my instant reaction video, and I'm an idiot for not doing it. Was Moses Sesse. I thought he was absolutely phenomenal in central midfield. I thought he was good. I did a tweet on it this morning. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. His performance was like fearless. Like, I love the fact that you've got him and Robinson, and also Quasi as well. And Downs, the striker. They're coming in and they're fresh, and they haven't got that last season scarring on them. Do you know what I mean? And I like that. I think that we need more freshness. We need more fresh body through the door, and hopefully they can get that done. We'll cover all the transfer news later on in this show. Ben Carroll, thank you for your membership, mate. As a member, just a shout out for anybody that is a member of the channel. I am dropping my championship predictions to members only first, so you're going to get till tomorrow lunchtime before anybody else to watch them. So I've done my championship predictions for the season. I'm going to drop it, and I think you'll really enjoy it. It's a really good video. It took me a long time to put it together. It was a whole evening's work to piece it together, but I was pleased with the outcome of it. That is for sure. I will get involved. Get involved in the comments box below, and I will share all your chats as we go. That is for sure. There is a bit of breaking news I put on the right hand side of your screen, though it's not really breaking. Joe Aribo was given headspace over the weekend. We'll cover that as well, and I'll give you my opinion on it. Right, let's go back to what Will Steele had to say after the game at the weekend. He did talk about the injuries, because there were players. There were players that were missing, and we were like, were they left out because there's transfer speculation, or is it a little bit more than that? Taylor Harwood-Bellis is the first story I want to cover, because Will Steele did go on to say that Taylor Harwood-Bellis will not be fit to face Wrexham at the weekend. No surprise to that one. He's hoping that Flynn Downs will be back for the opening game on Saturday, but I don't see for 1 minute he'll be anywhere near ready to start this game. But Harwood Bellis has been back in training at Staplewood last week. He remains around 2 weeks away in returning to match action. Still went on to say, I think Harwood Bellis has probably got another 10 days to go. He said this on Saturday. He's only just joined training in the latter stages of last week. So there's no danger that I don't think he probably plays a great deal, Harwood Bellis, anytime before the transfer window closes. Because the time to get him up to speed, it'll take a little while. They'll probably have to give him, he probably won't even be ready for that Northampton Cup game, because that's like literally a week away, isn't it now? It's come up to like a week away to the EFL Cup game, because that's pretty much straight on the back of the game at the weekend. Flynn Downs missed the whole of the training camp over in Spain, in Girona. He wasn't there, and Will Steele was asked about him. He wasn't involved in either of the games the weekend. There was 2 games for people that don't know, people that are not so close to the club, that tune in, that are overseas. So at the weekend, there was a game against Brighton and Hove Albion that was open to the fans. It's a 3:30 kickoff. Before that, they had a behind closed doors friendly where a select 11 played a 60-minute game. Downs wasn't involved in that. Like I said, he missed that trip to Girona, and he this is what Steele said, this was his words, he hasn't trained yet, and he's had loads of little niggles. He has had niggles, persistent niggles, I think it was, that I read somewhere a few days ago. Ben Brereton Diaz wasn't involved either, and he went on to say he's locked his hips. I've never heard of this before. I don't know how you lock your hips, but he said that he's struggling with sore groins and hips, and he doesn't want to be forcing players at this moment in time. Will Smallbone, he didn't feature in either of the games either. He's injured. He landed on his arm and his hand. He's got an injury, and he's still in a fair bit of pain. It apparently swelled up quite badly afterwards. He landed awkwardly following a collision whilst in Girona, and it looks like, he's suffering. Whether he'll be ready for the weekend, I don't know. Didn't hear any more on that. The other 2 injuries that were both left out of the weekend. Sam Edozie there's a bit of talk around him. Is he going? Is he staying? He wasn't left out for any other reason, other than the sounds of it, that he was injured. They both picked up injuries, Charlie Taylor and Sam Edozie, at the training camp in Girona. They haven't trained since they've been back in England. That was up until the weekend, so both of those have not trained. But Will Steele did go on to say, I'm not worried as such. We don't want to force players back into anything stupid with them. We will just see how this week goes, which is pretty sensible, really. Then he was obviously asked loads of questions about Fernandez, whether he's staying. He's asked about Dibbling. Look, they've got interest in both, and we'll come on to Fernandez very, very shortly. There is loads of conversation about both those players. He wants obviously to keep them, but he knows there's noise around them, and they've got valuations, the pair of them. He did go on to say that the club are aligned in terms of their needs. We need flair, needed added to the squad. There's no doubt about that. Ahead of the championship campaign, and they do. We do need some flair. There's no doubt about that. But it was 2-2 the game. I thought it was a good comeback, really. Jay Robinson's deflected goal. It was a nice strike, but it took a pretty wicked deflection. Adam Armstrong, whose body language again I thought was a little bit off. Whether he's just not quite in the groove at the moment, just trying to find that confidence. Did score a penalty. I thought that was really good. But Minter had scored both the goals at Brighton, which were identical. And I think a lot of people were calling out young Quasi for not getting out to him and putting him under pressure. I think it's a pre-season friendly. I think it's really difficult to judge it all. But look, he's still young. There's a long way to go. Whether that is the centre-back partnership at the weekend, I'm not sure. I think he'd go through at the back the weekend still after what he saw later on in the game, because Ronnie Edwards come on, played right side centre back, and he was absolutely tremendous when he come on. I thought he played really well, but Saints nearly won the game. Shay Charles did nearly get Saints a winner, hit the post late in the game, and I thought it was an impressive end against a Premier League side. And a lot of people were really downbeat on social media, thinking they see Ryan Fraser starting, Adam Armstrong, and the way the team was set up. I do think we've got more than enough to give Wrexham a really good game the weekend, and we should be more than favourites to win that game against Wrexham at the weekend. There is no doubt about that. I will come to all your comments very, very shortly. So, like I said, Sam Edozie, Charlie Taylor, both injured. That's why they weren't involved. Fernandez was ill at the weekend, obviously, as well, which we covered in the instant reaction video. Joe Rebo given headspace. We'll come on to the transfer chat now. He's not. He needed headspace. I don't know why. What? Obviously, he's in the final year of his contract. If he needs headspace, not interested in being here. On your bike, mate. Go and drive you where you want. We don't want players right now that don't want to be here. Doesn't want to be here. On your go, on your jog. We need committed players now, and I think that's the big thing. You start looking into the transfer speculation around all these players, and I think you have to bear all of this in mind, because if Fernandez has got like 11 clubs interested in him, what they're saying, and his head's going to start being turned. I didn't realise, actually, still Steve Grant said in a WhatsApp chat I was in today, it was a Total Saints WhatsApp group, he said that George Mendes is his agent. I didn't realise that. I should have known that. But George Mendes is Fernandez's agent, which I think is quite interesting. He's agent to a lot of top players: Ronaldo, David De Gea, Jose Mourinho, Jamal as well. I think I can't remember all the players. I think Felix was one of them as well. There's a lot of good players that he is the agent for. Pretty big over in Portugal as well. So I think it'd be interesting what happens with Fernandez and what the valuation is. Nobody really knows, because it's never really come out. I don't have any sources. I'm not here with sources of stories. I know someone said at the top of the show, your sources, your sources were telling you lies last week. I have no sources. I just share stories that I hear on the grapevine across social media, and just have no sources in the club. We just literally bring what we see from Mark McAdam, from Alfie House, Sky Sports, the good sources. This is what we bring, and this is what we debate and chat about on the show. But nobody has ever really come out and said what Fernandez's actual value is. So what is his value, and what do Saints want from him? I'd be really intrigued to know exactly what the valuation is. But 11 clubs interested and want Fernandez, so there's no doubt that he's probably going to go. There was a fair bit of chat last week that West Ham want him, and no disrespect to West Ham now, I think he could probably do a little bit better than West Ham. I think he could do a bit better than that. I think his likely destination will be overseas. But I did say to somebody at the weekend, and they kept saying to me, and a lot of people come and said hello at the weekend, and we're talking about transfers and squad and where we're at. And a lot of people were talking about, Fernandez goes to West Ham, can we get James Ward-Prowse the other way? Look, I think that would soften the blow. I don't think James Ward-Prowse is going to come back in a month of Sundays. He's on 110 grand a week at West Ham. I cannot see that one happening, but it would probably soften that blow slightly. But with Fernandez, it's a number of clubs across Europe and the Premier League now that are circling around the midfielder at this moment in time. Saints are bracing themselves for bids. We don't know if they've had an official bid. There is a fans forum this coming Thursday. I hope to be there for that. I'm supposed to be working, so I need to juggle my arrangements, because I want to be there and try and report on it for the channel and bring that to you and get all the thoughts around it. If there's any questions that you want asked in that, I think it'd be quite interesting for you to drop them in the comments box below. Are there questions for you at the fans forum? If I get there, if I see a really good question in the chat, I might just pull it out and ask it if I get an opportunity. But it's an hour with a couple of hundred people in a room. It's really hard to get your question out there, really. So fans forum on Thursday, BBC Radio Solent, hosted by Adam Blackmore. That one, the club do it every year. It's quite a traditional thing, but you just end up with a lot of daft questions being asked, just nonsense stuff. Is the stadium going to be expanded, or is the women's team going to get any new signings? Is the men's team not going to buy any players? This is the sort of stuff you get. So hopefully there'll be some really good, sensible questions asked, and some really testing questions for once. That's exactly what we need. Right, I wanted to look at Fernandez's statistics. I like bringing stats onto the channel, and I like to have a look on a few websites that I go on, break down player stats. And I looked at Fernandez at the end of last season. I couldn't remember till I looked again today. And actually, it's so good when you look at it. I'm going to flick it on your screen because it's worth sharing. I want to share it with you because it is It's tremendous, his stats. Look, he only got 2 goals. The one thing about Fernandes, doesn't quite score enough goals, does he? His XG was 4.03, and he only got 2, so he's nowhere near his XG. His assists, he got just a 4. Still not quite enough creativity. 42 shots, good pass completion rate, very, very good. Created 34 chances, wins a lot of his duels, over 50% of his duels he won last year. Discipline was decent, just 8 yellow cards. Red cards he didn't get any, obviously, and he won the team. 55 fouls. That is Fernandes' stats for last season. I thought it was worth having a look at, because we looked at Diblin's the other day, and you could kind of look at Diblin's and say, you could see where he needed to improve. And I think the one thing about Matty, he's got everything, hasn't he? Probably just needs to start adding a few goals to his game. But I don't think there's any doubt that he will absolutely start doing that. There is no doubt about that. But that is Matty Fernandes' stats. Thought I'd share that on the channel with you this evening. Right, we will come to your chat very, very shortly as we work through the show. I did see today, actually, and somebody put it in the chat a minute ago, our ex-loanee from last season, Leslie Oguchukwu, was about to go to Burnley. I don't know if it's...
Get that, the better. Hopefully, like you say,
of the pack is Sheffield. This weekend, we'll see the second tier kick off for another campaign as well. Now, over the next hour, we're going to be assessing the title favourites, the playoff hopefuls, and the teams who might be fighting for survival as well. One team, though, hoping to be near the top of the pack is Sheffield United, as the Blades look to bounce back from their playoff heartbreak under their new boss, Ruben Selles.
We knew that before we arrived here, and everyone working for the club knows that if you are working or playing for Sheffield United, there's big expectations in our performance and our position in the table, so that's no surprise for us.
From one new manager to another, as Ryan Mason kicks off his managerial career this weekend as the boss of playoff-chasing West Bromwich Albion.
When you go into a new job, new environment, you want to get results. You want people to believe in what you're doing and what you're trying to create, and the earlier you can get that, the better. Hopefully, like you say, we can start the season well and give us a good platform to kick on.
And there's plenty of eyes, of course, on Birmingham City this season. The Blues are splashing the cash. So could the newly promoted side make it back-to-back promotions? Their co-owner, Tom Brady, believes they have everything they need to be successful.
The only people that really can get things done are the people that are within that locker room. And the staff and those players, they're the ones that are going to decide the fate of this season. It's our job and opportunity to help solve problems for them and to put them in a great position to succeed.
So much from myself and the former Ipswich Town striker Sam Parkin to discuss over the next hour. So here we go for the second time this season, first time with the Championship teams. This is EFL All Access on TalkSport 2. And I'm delighted to welcome me old mucker, Sam Parkin. How are you doing, my friend?
Really good, Hugh. Yeah, recovered from Friday night at Kenilworth Road. Not one for the purists, I would hasten to add, but been desperate for the proper football to get back underway, and we're going to be joined by the Championship, of course, this weekend as well. So, rubbing my hands together with excitement.
Yeah, the game at Kenilworth Road between Luton and AFC Wimbledon didn't exactly whet the appetite for the rest of the season. However, we did get some more action over the weekend, and usually on EFL All Access on a Monday, we would review all of that action. But because of the staggered start to the different divisions in the EFL this season, we did a big preview show last week for the start of League 1 and 2. It was only right we did a big preview show for the Championship this weekend. But there is, of course, plenty more coverage of the EFL across the TalkSport network in the coming weeks. So don't worry, we'll have more reaction to the games in League 1 and League 2 from next Monday onward. As for today, we are going to be talking about the Championship, of course. 11 of the 24 Championship sides start the campaign with a new manager. In fact, of the 18 teams that were in the Championship last season that also start this season in the Championship, only Portsmouth have the same manager as they started last year with, and that is Portsmouth's John Mousinho. So it's a league where we've become accustomed to change. Let's call it that. One team we're familiar with, who've had a year away, is Ipswich Town. And we're going to start at the top of the show tonight, Sam, by discussing the teams coming down to the Championship and what they might offer the division. And we start with Ipswich Town because they are many people's automatic favourites for promotion. Azor Matasiwa, Cedric Kipra and Premier League veteran Ashley Young have come in to build on what was still a very impressive core of players. Liam Delap has gone, as has captain Sam Morsey. They're the most notable departures for the Tractor Boys. But we're going to hear from their striker, George Hurst, first up. He's been speaking to TalkSport ahead of the opening weekend, fully aware of the expectations being placed on the team.
I think it's a pressure we should, thrive on. I think it's a pressure we should be proud of the fact that we've got. I think if we didn't, achieve what we did last time in the Championship and, didn't give a good account of ourselves in the Premier League, then ultimately we wouldn't have that pressure and we wouldn't be favourites. I think, something that we should go and enjoy, make the most of. It's not every season you're going to get the chance to be the best team in the division, and something we can be proud of, that we put ourselves in that position, and something we should go and relish. Like I say, it's a division that we know well. After the last time, I think it's going to play out a little bit differently in the way that teams do approach us. I think going into the Championship last time, I don't think people fully knew what to expect, and I think we caught quite a few teams off guard at times. So I think this season we're going to hopefully have a lot more of the ball. I think we're going to be shown a different level of respect, and that's something that we've got to go and be able to deal with. We've got to go and be able to break teams down. We've got to go and be able to hurt teams in so many different ways, and that's what we've been working on in pre-season.
Well, this is where I defend Ipswich Town, Sam. They got a lot of criticism last year for their recruitment, despite spending money, didn't have, these proven Premier League players. What they did was they prepared for the future, the likelihood of being relegated, and they have come back to the division with an incredibly strong squad for this level.
Yeah, I was going to say there's probably similarities where we sit right now today with Luton Town coming down last season, but Luton got so many plaudits in the Premier League, and I think that's where the problems arise from, and I think a few of the players had their heads turned. In truth, Ipswich probably maybe didn't achieve the points haul that they should have done or were anticipated to, with the quality of the manager and some of the players. So with that in mind, and I think the stature of Ipswich as well, the stature of the manager in the game. Let's not forget he was being linked to some huge roles but 12 months ago. I think they'll be able to switch on for this season, the players, unlike the Luton lads who really struggled, I think, to get their heads around another season in the Championship. I think that won't be a problem for Ipswich. And I think you're right. I think if you look at the spine from the back to the front, you think of Greaves and O'Shea, two of the standout defenders maybe in the Championship for a number of years, and just the squad is littered with quality. Maybe a little bit light maybe in central midfield with that Axis, Morsey and Luongo finally being broken up, but I'm sure they'll move to strengthen that position. And just hearing from Hurst there, a little bit of pressure on him. I think very similar to Liam Delap, who's vacated, but of course he's going to want to hit the ground running, get a good return of goals. But I think the bottom line is he'll be supplemented with Jack Clark, Smodix, Philogene. I could keep going. There's so many talented front players, midfield players. I think a share of the goals around is probably the way they'll go, and probably the way they'll get success.
First prediction of the show for the upcoming season. Will Kieran McKenna still be the Ipswich manager when we get to the final day of the season?
Yeah, well, I'd say his stock is probably not as high as it was a year ago for the reasons I maybe stated, that we all probably anticipated them causing one or two more shocks. So, listen, he's the way he's transformed that club, he deserves enormous credit. I'm sure he will manage one of the big clubs one day, but no, I think the Ipswich supporters and hierarchy can be safe in the knowledge that he'll probably want to, achieve another promotion this season. I don't see him going anywhere, and I think it's vitally important, really, for them as a club that there's no change right now, and they can try and get, the ideal scenario maybe would be for him to get them back, and then them have to fight off the various suitors in 12 months' time, when maybe that would be too tempting for him to refuse.
Okay, let's move on to Southampton then next. Last season, nothing short of a complete disaster, of course. They only narrowly avoided becoming the worst team in Premier League history. They finished just a solitary point ahead of Derby's lowest ever points tally record. Will Still, who's been spoken about coming to English football for quite some time, he's had a great reputation on the continent. He's been drafted in to spearhead the rebuild. There's already been a few departures. Kamaldeen Sulemana's gone, Aaron Ramsdale, of course, Jan Bednarek. Midfielder Mateus Fernandes continues to attract attention as well from clubs. Everton in talks with Saints over signing their highly rated youngster Tyler Dibbling as well. So we don't know exactly what this squad will look like. Despite that, though, there is excitement for the new season ahead. And the Saints boss Will Still admitting it will take time for his side to show their full potential.
The Championship is coming, and it's coming quickly. We've still got a fair few things to do, whether that be on the pitch or off the pitch. But like I've said since from the start, we will be as ready as we can be on that first game, and we will be ready when we need to be ready further down the line. Whether that be with the squad, with the playing style, with the identity that we want to have on and off the pitch. And Rome wasn't built in a day. Southampton, or the new Southampton, won't be ticking from the get-go. But I think that's what we want also, because we want to keep improving. We want to keep learning. New players come in, other players will be going out, and that's, as a very famous person would say, that's football.
What do we think of Southampton then, Sam? There are very talented players there. They obviously need to get their confidence back, which they haven't had throughout that campaign in the Premier League. Used to losing, but last time in the Championship, we saw plenty of these players very comfortable and excelling under Russell Martin. So what do you think this time around?
I think it's always really tricky. I think back to their previous campaign in the Championship and being at Home Park. I think for TalkSport, Southampton going there early in the season and speaking to the staff, and at that stage they didn't know which players were going to be out on the training ground from day to day, such as the speculation that surrounds and the likely possibility of players leaving and coming in. And I think they're experiencing that now. I think that's why he's speaking with the handbrake on to a degree, because he doesn't know exactly what his team's going to look like. But I think, safe in the knowledge that the likes of Armstrong, Ross Stewart, who's obviously had real injury problems, Archer, that's, three formidable Championship forwards off the bat. Harwood Bellis and Edwards could be a brilliant youthful centre-half partnership. You have to fancy them because of the strength, because of the resources, because of the financial power in comparison to some of the other teams they're going to be coming up against. But what exactly they're going to look like, we don't know. And to throw some further confusion in, we don't know exactly what Will Still's team's going to look like. I think it's going to be real intensity. Without the ball, I think he's a really good out-of-possession manager, I'm led to believe. So that's probably something they needed. They were a little bit too open early part of their last period in the Championship, and he deserves his opportunity. Really excited to see them, and yeah, we'll see which one of the relegated sides can get into their stride quicker than the others, because we saw with Leicester a few seasons ago, they went out in front and weren't caught. So it would be great to get a fast start, but I think there'll be a little bit of further short-term pain for all these three clubs.
Leicester City is the third of them. Things haven't been great for the club off the pitch. Who knows? They might be hit with a points deduction. It's incredibly hard to predict, really, what will happen with their campaign as we wait to see if there will be a deduction for an alleged breach of the and PSR rules before the season begins. As for the on-pitch side of things, Leicester haven't been able to do too much in the transfer window. Experienced goalkeeper Asmir Begovic, the only addition. Wilfred Ndidi set to leave the club, we believe, to Besiktas. That deal becoming close day by day. So, what do we think? Marti Cifuentes, the former QPR boss, can he get the best out of what could potentially be a young squad based on a lot of academy talent?
Yeah, I think difficult again to predict, but the squad's going to look a little different. Indeed, you mentioned there, El Khanous, I think, was one of the players who did leave the Premier League campaign with some plaudits. But, well, they've got the likes of Fatawu and Mavididi still at the club. I mean, those guys should be standout players in the Championship. Harry Winks and some of the defensive players who remain from the last Championship. It's a strong squad. It's a new manager. It's going to be a slightly different look. It's not going to be as possession heavy. I would say Martí Cifuentes is quite a flexible manager, having seen him at QPR, problem solved and changed various different facets over his time at QPR. So I'll be interested to see what the team looks like. But again, for the reasons I've previously stated, I think the resources, the depth of the squad should have them in the higher echelons.
We shall see. We're going to predict, by the way, our top two, our playoff sides, and also our three relegated clubs towards the end of the show. So stay tuned for that. Plenty for us to discuss. Up next, we're going to focus on some of the teams who need to improve. I think there's a lot of big clubs in the Championship. Plenty of those underwhelmed last season, didn't even make it into the top six. I wonder who can make the leap this time around, if they're to have any form of success this season for some of the expectation. Making the playoffs, while Sheffield United, new boss Ruben Selles as well, for them it's achieving automatic promotion. So we'll be discussing all of that and the Blades very shortly here on EFL All Access.
On Call UK supporting the nation since at Morrison's.
EFL All Access on TalkSport 2. Yes, you're listening to EFL All Access, looking ahead to the start of the Championship this weekend here across the TalkSport network, which of course is your home of the EFL. To help me with that, I'm Hugh Withenscroft. Is the former Luton Town striker Sam Parkin. We run the rule over the relegated sides from the Premier League. What about the sides who need to improve? And the first of those, maybe it's a surprising name. It's Sheffield United, who clearly excelled in the division last year and narrowly missed out on automatic promotion, but also in the playoff final, of course, to Sunderland. Now, Chris Wilder, the manager, has been replaced by the ex-Hull City boss, Ruben Selles, who takes the reins in a move that did surprise a few. They have, for now, kept Gus Harmer, added a few good loan signings as well. Louis Barry from Aston Villa, Tyler Binden coming in from Nottingham Forest. The sale of Vinny Souza to Wolfsburg, though, will be a big loss for the team. So let's hear from the new Blades boss, Ruben Selles. He spoke to TalkSport earlier today and is fully aware of the promotion expectations for his side.
The competition is always really difficult. These 46 games we saw last season with teams in the bottom beating teams in the top. We, in our experience with Hull, got points almost against everyone in the top six. And it's going to be a very difficult decision, but we are going to be as competitive as anybody. And of course, the target is to get to win absolutely every game and try to compete. We know it's not always possible, but our target is to try to be on the top of our performance from the very beginning and get as many points as we can. So on that, we knew that before we arrived here, and everyone working for the club knows that if you are working or playing for Sheffield United, there's big expectations in our performance and our position in the table. So that's no surprise for us.
Well, the proof will be in the pudding for Sheffield United, who made a big decision to get rid of Chris Wilder. Clearly wasn't really to do with his quality as a coach, rather some different opinions on how the club should proceed. But I would have kept him. I would have found a way to keep Chris Wilder, to be perfectly honest, after the season they just had. Ruben Selles, lots of people think he's a very good coach. Is he going to be good enough to get this side to the Premier League?
Well, that's a tough one to answer. I think, in my opinion, just to rewind a couple of months, I just, something inside of me just thought it would be difficult for Chris Wilder to go again. I just think to have he'll always have the full backing of the supporters because he's one of them, but I just felt that last 12 months was his opportunity to get them back in the Premier League. I didn't think it was going to be a long process between the two again, and I just felt it was almost inevitable that this was going to happen. That was my gut, and they probably needed to be a little bit better, maybe tactically. Ruben Selles clearly has got that in his armoury. I think you saw that initially when he took the reins at Southampton for a brief period, and he's done a brilliant job at two very troubled football clubs across the last couple of years in Reading and Hull. So I think deserves his opportunity. Still a little bit of surprise, of course, when you think of the success Chris Wilder's had and you think of the relevant infancy of Ruben Selles' his coaching career. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I'd imagine it's going to be a different look to Sheffield United. They were very kind of content to soak up pressure at times last season and play into space and play with a little bit of intensity on the break. I'd expect them maybe to have a little bit more of the ball maybe this year and try and dominate and grind teams down. And not loads of loads of activity incoming, a lot of loanees going out. Obviously lost Vinny Souza, as you mentioned, so there's a little bit of surgery still to be done to the squad. But like the three we've already mentioned, O'Hare, Ahmedhodzic, Hamer, Cannon potentially could rediscover his goal scoring form this season if he's given a bit more stability at the club. Some big names, and expect them to be up there challenging, of course.
Got the parachute payments still, and they should use that towards the end of the window to hopefully bring in a couple of strong loanees as well, maybe from the Premier League. That would help Ruben Selles. I like Sheffield United. Again, we're going to do our top 6 predictions a little bit later on. Interesting to see how they start the season, because I think for Ruben Selles, as good as he's been, I went to a couple of whole games at the end of last season. The fans weren't happy, despite the fact they stayed in the division. With the style of football and the approach, obviously he has to set a much higher standard at Sheffield United. It'll be interesting to see if finally, at a club that isn't in sort of crisis off the field, in perilous conditions, but with a really stable squad and quality players at the level, whether he can excel. I'm intrigued to see it anyway. Let's talk about some of the other teams. And I think there's a group of teams, Sam, who fit into this category, right? Big teams that have been to the Premier League. In any given year, their fans expect them to be in the playoff picture and to possibly push for a place at Wembley. Who knows? Promotion to the Premier League, right? Norwich City is the first of them. And in fact, most times in the Championship, we expect to be there or thereabouts towards the top of the table. This is the first season they won't have parachute payments. They brought in Liam Malling. It was a disappointment of a season, really underachieving last year under Johannes Hoff-Turret for many people. The ex-Bristol City boss actually defied a lot of expectations, didn't he? He guided them into the playoffs last season. And of course, is Norwich born, but they've lost star man Borja Sainz. Seems likely for many that Josh Sargent will follow him out the door as well. So does that bring them back into the pack a little bit, do you think? All of those things contributing. And do you think, a bit like Ruben Selles, do you think Liam Manning's going to be the right man to take Norwich to the Premier League? What do you think?
Well, I felt a little bit harsh on the previous manager, Torup. I quite enjoyed watching his side. Obviously, there was a lack of consistency and they ended the season poorly. So that probably hastened his departure. Many a man has tried to get Bristol City into the shake-up, and Liam Manning achieved that. So deserved massive credit. Again, a little surprised that it was time for him to move on after just a year or so at Bristol City. But I like him. Thinks he sets up his team intelligently. I think his teams are good without the ball. I think they'll be decent defensively. The concern is, I think obviously they struggled a little bit during periods last year, Norwich, when Sainz had his ban and Sargent was unfit for the first few months of the season. So if they're going to lose those two, well, they've lost one already. If they lose Sargent as well, it's going to be how quickly do some of these glamorous signings from the continent hit the ground running. There was obviously a number that came in last season, the likes of Sienach, who did relatively well. But Chris Garden, for example, scored a lot of goals for Bromby. He comes in. Topic, a midfield player in the last 24 hours or so. So again, the recruitment under the new ownership, and of course Ben Napper, the director of football, who came in around about 6 months, a year ago now. There seems to be, some joined up thinking at Norwich. Recruitment's always fascinating, I think, across the last couple of years under this guy's and the previous one. Young players, good ages, coming in from European leagues. So a little bit uncertain, but I think they'll be a good watch. Maybe not as thrilling as they were at times last season, because I think Liam Manning will probably just strengthen that structure without the ball. But they have to improve on last year. That's a given their recent history, I think, in the Championship, which is of a team that challenges.
Middlesbrough. Underachieving as well last season for many. They fell pretty considerably short of the playoff positions. Fired, obviously, Michael Carrick, replaced him with Rob Edwards. Of course, best known for guiding Luton Town to the Premier League in 2023. Alfie Jones and youngster Abdoulaye Kante have been their only summer addition so far. There is potential for Chuba Akpom to rejoin the club, but Birmingham and Ipswich also competing for his signature. I'm not sure about this one. I'm really keen to see how Rob Edwards does. the magic touch at Luton. I think Luton is a particular club, that underdog tag, that mentality, that spirit that helped them get into the Premier League. I think he was a part of that. The team, for me, never played that kind of, and it's a weird one to say because obviously they did get to the Premier League, but it's not like the style of football was a class apart. It wasn't, right? I think the style of football was very much of the Championship. So what he brings to Middlesbrough now, I might as well ask you, what could be the difference for a Rob Edwards Middlesbrough side to be competing for a promotion?
Well, consistency is the first thing, and that's going to be incredibly tricky. I just feel like this is a really tough job. I think it's a club that's just drifting a little bit, and the supporters were very critical, I think, towards the tail end of last season, despite them, nearly sneaking into the playoffs, obviously losing at Coventry on final day, if memory serves. But they weren't happy with Michael Carrick. I think it was a little bit lacklustre, maybe a little bit side to side, the football, and they want a little bit more oomph. And I'm not sure exactly how Rob Edwards wants his teams to play. I think that he inherited a really robust, direct, physical team at Luton, and he didn't want to change too much. And with that, they got success. I think he deserved credit for making them easy on the eye, for want of a better phrase, in the Premier League, when he introduced better footballers like your Ross Barkley, Lukonga in midfield, Andros Townsend, so they could play a little bit more. So I think he did drip feed that in, but with a blank canvas, I'm not exactly sure how Middlesbrough are going to look. I just think they are probably short in comparison to other Championship squads right now. You have some exciting forward players. Whittaker obviously came in and didn't do the business last season, so he'll be hoping for a better campaign. Azaz, we know, is a talent. Conway up front, but I just don't see it being enough, especially with it being probably a transitional season in terms of the style of play as well. So listen, sitting here right now, I would be very surprised if they're in the top six. But I think that's more about the club and the squad as a whole rather than the new man in the dugout.
Hayden Hackney, of course, a star player in midfield, got a bright future, rejected a move to Ipswich after Middlesbrough had accepted a £20 million bid. Obviously, I think he's waiting to see if Premier League clubs possibly come in for him. Who knows, a move to the continent. I expect them to lose him by the end of the window if that kind of money's coming in for him. If they do lose him, is that a huge blow? How does it affect the team? But also, if he ends up staying, how positive could that be for Borough?
Really positive, but I think when the wheels are in motion, if you like, the bids are starting to come in, there's probably going to be, a lot more interested suitors for him. I wouldn't want to discourage him from joining Ipswich. He's a brilliant club, but obviously I think the type of money you're talking about, he might feel that he could get himself a Premier League move and in time be a Premier League player, a certain Premier League player, rather than the hope that in going to Ipswich could yield a promotion. So no, he'll be a blow. I think Vandenberg as well looks like he's on the way out. So they're going to lose a few. They need to do some business. Akpom would be a great one, not only in terms of what he can bring, but for the supporters as well, to try and rekindle his form of a couple of seasons ago. He would be a big signing, but obviously that seems to have opened the door to a number of other clubs to start jostling for him as well.
Watford, surprise, surprise, another new manager at Vicarage Road, Paolo Pezzolano, the former Rayo Valladolid boss, takes the reins. He's Watford's 12th head coach since Javi Gracia departed in September 2019 and the 9th since the end of the 2020-21 season. Georgi Shakfatadze and Imran Louza, two of the club's most prized assets, still remain. They've made 6 new signings in the window so far. Hector Cipriani, one of free transfers, a standout after he left Peterborough United. What do we think of Watford?
I think what we always think, we have no idea what you're going to get. I suppose the one consistency or one valid point right now is they got a little group of very talented young players, the likes of Vata, Barr, Dumbia towards the tail end of last season, caught my eye certainly, and they've strengthened in that department. They look to be recruiting quite young, and I think that's with a view to this manager's pedigree, which is, I think, improving young players. He's obviously got really good success overseas. I think South America of getting teams promoted into the top level. which you could look at and say that's quite savvy. Maybe there's an art to it, or it could just be in keeping with Watford's last decade, 20 years, which is a bit scattergun and changing manager at the drop of a hat. So we'll wait and see. One thing is, I did enjoy watching Watford last year. I think Tom Cleverley got a lot right. I never really felt they were going to force their way into the reckoning. I remember being there for TalkSport in the spring when they drew 0-0 with Argyle, and it was a kind of must-win game. And I went home that night thinking, there's no way Watford are making the playoffs. There's no way they're ready, and there's no way Argyle are surviving. And that's how it played out. And yeah, again, I'd be very surprised if Watford are in the shake-up, but they may surprise a few, and I think because of those talented youngsters, we have to kind of just give them an opportunity and give the manager an opportunity to hopefully have a decent season, but who knows?
Very quickly, hopes for West Bromwich Albion under Ryan Mason, across the Midlands to Coventry under Frank Lampard, who clearly had a big impact on the team as well. I guess Coventry, it's more around possibly forcing their way into the automatic promotion conversation, given how well they played. West Bromwich Albion maybe into the top 6. Do you see it happening for both?
Well, I think you'd have to favour Coventry right now. Historically, you'd probably say West Brom have obviously been around it a little bit more and had more years in the Premier League in recent times. But I just think the unknown with Ryan Mason, they could be, a good watch. He could be incredibly talented. We just don't know, given that it's his first job and there's a lack of activity at the Hawthorns. They went through that kind of change last year. One of the best defensive units for many a year in the Championship under Corberan, trying to kind of make them more attack-minded, more goals, and it didn't really translate tail end of last season. So it's a bit of a mismatch at the moment. We'll kind of see what they look like once the season gets underway. But Coventry, you'd have to fancy the squad, the manager, the way he transformed them the second half to last season, and also his track record in getting Derby, into the playoffs into the playoff final in his solitary whole season in the Championship. And they've got good options, I think, across the piece. They're going to lose Van Eyck, it looks like, but they've got Kessler Hayden in already. They've got 4 or 5 strikers, wide players that I could reel off that are ready probably to take the Championship by storm. And I don't think the old playoff hangover will kind of translate to the Coventry lads this season. Yes, they lost in the last knock-ins against Sunderland. Yes, it was a heartbreak, but they've done so well to get there. I think they could probably be realistic that they overachieved to a degree, the way they hit the ground running under Lampard, and I'm sure they will be energised and motivated to do it from the off this time round.
Okay, up next we're going to focus on the new boys in town as Birmingham City, Wrexham and Charlton prepare for the second tier and its football. Stay with us.
Get unbeatable. You don't need and go see for your
All Access on TalkSport 2.
You're listening to EFL All Access. Hugh Woozencroft and the former Swindon striker Sam Parkin are with you. We've looked at the top end of the table. Let's look at the new boys into the Championship, those coming up from League One. And we'll start with the champions. Birmingham City, who tore through League One last season, smashed records on their way to the title, bouncing straight back into the Championship at the first time of asking. Now, the Blues have splashed the cash this season once again. They've signed Kyogo Furuhashi, Taylor Gardner-Hickman, Damari Gray. In the loan market, they've brought in James Beadle, Tommy Doyle, Erin Cashin as well. And they're in talks with Ajax over signing Chuba Akpom. Now, I know many of you may have seen the Birmingham City documentary series, going behind the scenes, following the players, coaching staff, and the new ownership team as well, including legendary NFL quarterback and Blues co-owner Tom Brady. He's been speaking to TalkSport. He believes the club can have another successful season.
Well, I want these players to know that they have all the support they need for them to go out there and accomplish their goals. Certainly, the only people that really can get things done are the people that are within that locker room. And the staff and those players, they're the ones that are going to decide the fate of this season. It's our job and opportunity to help solve problems for them and to put them in a great position to succeed. So it's not going to be anything I say here in late July that matters. It's going to be about what they do when they show up to training, how they recover, how they eat, the individual choices they make, whether they win or lose. Do we learn from our mistakes? Do we show up the next day with a competitive attitude to be successful? Does the manager continue to think and study different tactics week in and week out? Because every week is something different. You're going against different teams that have different strengths and weaknesses. And then ultimately, can those players go out and execute under pressure?
So Tom Brady there, who isn't going to be the manager of Birmingham City. It's going to be Chris Davis, but it's good to hear he's got a positive message for the team. Sounds like he's going to be in the dugout. He's not, don't worry. I think it's a good year to be coming in, particularly with the money, the spending, but also the positive form, the incredible season that Birmingham City had, trying to keep that rolling into the Championship this year. I think it could be a good time to do it because it's not as strong, it's not as standout in terms of the big teams, I think, this year. I think the 3 teams coming down will also need to get some confidence back into their games. Do you think promotion is possible for Birmingham City this time around?
I wouldn't rule it out completely, but I think a season of consolidation or better is very realistic. Top half for them. There was a huge disparity in quality from them to the other sides in League One last season. That was evidently clear to me as soon as I'd seen them in the flesh. And I don't think their tactics actually had to deviate too much. They had a clear, concise way of playing. It didn't really alter. So that they will be tested in that regard next season. The teams will be tactically better. The players will be better. The coaches that Chris Davis comes up against will be better. So therefore, they'll have to be flexible in their setups, but also they probably had to add that additional quality, which they've done so. So I probably watched them last year and felt they'd probably be fine in the Championship. So given the names that you just reeled off, some of the guys that are joining, I mean, Cashin and Doyle are as good a loan signings as you can probably get in the second tier. If they could get Kyogo going again in front of goal, he should certainly be a threat for them in the second tier. So yeah, I think akin to everyone else's sentiment, whether you're an ardent watcher of the Championship or a casual viewer, I don't think Birmingham are going to be looking over their shoulders this season. I think it's a club very much going forward. You only have to go to the ground and see the improvements there. And yeah, it's a bit of a no-brainer as to why so many influential people have wanted to get involved and try and make that club prosper, because Sleeping Giant probably doesn't do it justice. Yeah. The growth could be enormous there.
Chris Davis, ready for this challenge, do you think?
I think so, yeah. I mean, he really impressed me last year. Incredibly level-headed. Let's not forget that he's been involved in some massive games already during his coaching career. He's been in pressure situations, not as the number one, but he struck me as someone that was more than ready. And yeah, watching his team, yeah, really well set up. Good ideas. And again, I'm interested to see him be tested sternly this year, and I'm sure they'll be on the receiving end of a few defeats and maybe a few heavy ones at that. But yeah, I think there's far too much quality and far too much power, well, in terms of the resources at Birmingham, for them to be in any kind of relegation trouble.
Wrexham. Everyone wants to talk about Wrexham. They could be anything this season. Playoff team, mid-table, relegation fight, who knows? They've got Ryan Hardy, they've got Josh Windass, Kiefer Moore, Lewis O'Brien. They will all add big Championship experience. They've brought in Connor Cody. They've signed Bolton's captain, George Thomason, as well. But the question's going to be regarding whether Phil Parkinson can probably get the best out of this group. If they finish 14th or above this season, that is their best ever finish in the EFL, and they'll be aiming at least for that, won't they? What do you make of Wrexham, all the work that they've done? Do you think they are set for possibly a playoff tilt?
I think they've achieved incredible things over the last few years, and in a slightly different way, because it's a different makeup. The team, it will look different stylistically. They'll be bruising. They'll probably take advantage of set pieces, long throws. But what they have done is added additional quality. Of course, some big names go into the club, and I think there'll be a little bit of a surprise factor, and I think there'll be the momentum that they'll carry from those previous 3 promotions. And I think that will probably see them okay this season. It may be tricky at times, because I think they may get out footballed on occasion by some of the the better possession sides in the table, but they'll take scalps, and I'm sure they'll take scalps at home where, if memory serves, their record last season was almost impeccable. I think they just lost 2 games in quick succession, maybe in the springtime. So they'll be incredibly strong at home. The supporters will play their part, and I'm sure Phil Parkinson will be there next year, and then that'll be an interesting conversation. If he can stabilise them in the Championship, how do they kick on to have that tilt at the Premier League? Can they do it in the current style, being hard to beat, being robust, being one of the best teams with set pieces? I'm not so sure, but I think for this year, as a surprise package, I think they'll get enough points.
What about Charlton? Big club back in the second tier. They showed they're not making up the numbers this season. The Addicts have added Sonny Carey, Joe Rankin Costello, Reece Burke, Amari Bell, Thomas Kaminsky, Tanto Alafe, Rob Apter, Harvey Nibbs, Charlie Kelman. It's been a pretty busy window for Nathan Jones, who actually turned down interest from his boyhood club, Cardiff City, down in League One, to stay with the Addicts and sign a new deal. They are clearly determined to stay up. Is the quality there now with the work that they've done to do so?
Well, it's a different strategy, and it's not one that we haven't seen before. I think Oxford's a decent example of kind of cherry picking some of the best lads from the third tier and hoping they can organically make that step into the Championship with a club that's been promoted. So the likes of Kelman, it's going to be interesting to see if they can translate what they did in League One last season. He's the obvious one. Harvey Nibbs has been a standout for Cambridge and latterly Reading. There's the contingent of Luton players who, of course, the manager knows really well. That seems to have been a reoccurring theme since he's moved to the Valley. 5 or 6 lads have probably made that move now. So he trusts those guys. And to make up maybe that slight difference in quality, probably from Wrexham and Birmingham in terms of the names that we've just been talking about, Nathan Jones, I think, shortens that gap. I think he's really getting a tune out of them. When he gets his methods across and the players really buy into it, I think it can be an incredibly powerful thing, as we saw at Luton. Didn't subsequently happen in the Championship, but given that he's had this team from League One, had that second half of the season promotion, I think they will be hanging on to his every word. And I think, again, they'll take some scalps. I'd be lying if I said I don't think they'll be the ones that are in the most trouble. I think it will still be touch and go. But I think having Nathan Jones at their helm gives them a hell of an opportunity of staying in the division.
Okay, all right. Up next, we're going to focus on the teams who might be involved in the fight for Championship survival. Stay with us.
Team, kick off at 3, yeah? On my way. I've just picked up my new Nissan Town Store. It's packed with safety features, goalkeeper vibes.
Showing off fans, are we? My Nissan Primastar's got 8.6 cubic metres of space. So, loading up the footy gear now.
Thought this was a football chat. Try the all-new Nissan Interstar. Comes as a diesel or 100% electric with up to 285-mile range, like me up front. See you there.
Get ready to win with the Nissan Van range, all backed by a 5-year warranty and roadside assistance. Search Nissan Vans and visit your local Nissan Van Centre today.
Warranty terms apply. 5 years or 100,000 miles, whichever comes first. EV range figures are for comparability purposes and may not reflect real driving results. Visit nissan.co.uk.
You made me cough. Bigger combo in sports.
Swindon front man, the relegation candidates in the Championship we move on to. And Sheffield Wednesday are less candidates and more already elected, to be perfectly honest, because off-the-field chaos has engulfed Hillsborough this summer. Danny Roll, the manager's left the club. Former assistant Henrik Pedersen has taken charge, but players and staff, having not been paid on time, have seen valuable members of the squad, such as Michael Smith and Josh Windass, leave. They've been at a loss for nothing. 14 players in total have left the club this window. The club are under a transfer embargo. The North Stand closed for safety reasons. Pre-season friendly with Burnley called off due to a boycott from playing and coaching staff. There are some debates over whether their game against Leicester this weekend to open the season will even field a team for it. So, Sam, I'm at the moment more concerned about Wednesday actually surviving as a club than surviving in the Championship this season.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's a conversation for another day, and hopefully it's one that we're going to be having, whether they can salvage their Championship status, because at the moment it's just all about the club and about their continual problems in all manner of areas, and it's not a new conversation, is it? I mean, I seem to recall having a football conversation about Sheffield Wednesday maybe 2 years ago, where everyone was suggesting that they were down already, and Danny Roll came in and performed absolute miracles, as he did last season. So, yeah, that's probably a conversation for another day. It's just horrendous, and you hope that it can get sorted with new ownership and they can accumulate a squad to fulfil their fixtures, because there's a real concern about next Sunday's game at Leicester City going ahead at the moment. Again, I think it's too early to talk about the players kind of pulling together and seeing if they could create a siege mentality under the new manager, Henrik Pedersen. They just need some clarity on their situations. They need paid so they can go out and do their job this Sunday coming. So yeah, it's tragic when any clubs, I think, get this kind of difficulty. We've seen it with Bury, more recently with Morecambe, but a club of Sheffield Wednesday's magnitude to be in this situation, completely unthinkable.
A reminder, if you don't know, that the players have put out a statement today at Sheffield Wednesday. They say this has been a worrying time for us as players, but whilst we're often the ones in the spotlight, we are not the only ones involved. We stand together in support of all of our colleagues employed by the club who have been affected. Players and staff are now feeling real practical impacts in their professional and personal lives, and we are extremely concerned at the lack of clarity regarding what is happening and when this will be resolved. We want to reassure fans that there has not been and will not be any downing of tools by any of us on the training ground, and we are all working as hard as we can and supporting each other, the manager and staff. I still can't imagine, despite that statement, what it's like to be employed by Sheffield Wednesday right now. I don't know what the future holds, to be perfectly honest.
No, and everyone's situation individually is different. There'll be players that have, had good careers, have been relatively savvy with their money, but there'll be younger players where, if this is the situation for them, that they're not getting their wages on time, it's a real problem. And that goes for the staff members as well. So, yeah, I mean, full credit to them putting out the statement. And if that is led to be believed that everyone's full focus is on the upcoming season, and again, that's testament to them. But I think the reality is when the fixtures start and there's going to be a discrepancy in standards, a gap between them and the other teams in terms of quality, in terms of options, then it can be really difficult to stay unified. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see if they can get playing. That's the first thing, but to fathom that they're going to be able to accumulate points in the early weeks of the season, I find that really difficult to get my head around, especially if they're down to 14, 15, 13 players or whatever it may be.
Other than Sheffield Wednesday, I think like last year, there's going to be 5 or 6 teams who might be in the conversation in terms of relegation. We don't ever really know who those are, really. It depends who has a bad season. One team, and only one team I wanted to pick up because I feel like, having flirted with relegation last year, Hull City may have a difficult time this time around. They sacked manager Ruben Sellers, of course. Sergej Yakirovic is the new man at the helm, departing Turkish outfit Kayserispor. They've been fairly busy in the transfer market. 8 new arrivals. They're currently appealing, though, against a restriction, which means that they are unable to buy or sign any player that would actually cost them a transfer fee. That comes after concerns over the club's finances after they were late making transfer payments to Aston Villa for the loan of Louis Barry last season. The club has made some poor choices in terms of manager, Ruben Sellers actually being one of the more positive ones. Yakirovic needs to be one of the ones that works out for them, doesn't it? They didn't play great football at times last season, so I'm just slightly concerned. What do you think about Hull?
Yeah, well, I think you can make a case for a number of teams, because of resources. Sheffield Wednesday is a completely different picture because of their issues, and you'd put Hull in that same bracket. The 2 decisions he seems to have got right, the owner, is employing Rosenior and obviously Ruben Sellers last year, the way that he was able to keep them in the division against the odds. Some eye-catching business. I mean, Famewo, good Championship centre-half, Lundstrom coming in. But they've lost a lot of potency over the last few years. João Pedro, the one who had a period of goal scoring form last season, is obviously vacated. I think they'll hope that. I remember Balumi and Liam Miller having a good start under Tim Volta last season. Those two, if they've recovered from, I think, quite severe knee injuries, then they will give them a little bit more impetus going forward. But I think in the main, it's one of the poorest squads. And when you factor in the uncertainty at boardroom level, absolutely they have to be amongst the favourites to be fighting for their lives again down the bottom, sorry.
Exactly. Okay, all right. Before we wrap up, we wanted to choose our predictions. We wanted to make our predictions for the upcoming season. The top 2, 4 teams to make the playoffs, 3 teams to be relegated, Sam. Should we start with the top 2? Who are you going for?
Oh, I'm going to go for Ipswich, and I know this is a little bit up in the air in terms of the punishment, if indeed they are going to be punished, but I'm going to go for Leicester.
Wow.
They have too much to get to not be promoted.
I think that's a big shout.
Yeah.
I've gone for Ipswich as well as my top 2. I think Southampton. I think Adam Armstrong's probably going to be the top scorer in the league. I think, strangely, the fact that they've had a manager in the last couple of years who wants to get the ball down and play football, and they played some lovely football under Russell Martin, I think actually has a half-decent basis for Will Still to be successful. And he has been an impressive coach in, obviously, Liga. He's played a bit of European football with his management time as well. He's a young, bright coach. I think he will put out a very strong side this season. So I've gone for Ipswich and Southampton. I have put Leicester in my top 6, however, in no particular order. Birmingham, Sheffield United, Coventry and Leicester as my other teams in the top 6. Who have you gone for?
I'll give you the order. I'm going to go Saints, Coventry. Yeah, Saints 3rd, Coventry 4th, Sheffield United 5th, and Norwich sneaking into 6th.
Okay. I'm not too high on Norwich right now, but I like Liam Manning. We'll see what he produces. But it's a good selection. Going down, the bottom 3 was tough to choose. Obviously, we both got Wednesday in there.
Yeah, I'd have Wednesday in there today as we speak, absolutely.
I've got Hull City in there at the moment.
Yeah.
Who have you gone for your 3rd?
I think this is the hardest one out of the lot.
Yeah.
I'll give you my shortlist just quickly. So Portsmouth and Oxford will be on there. You know, second season syndrome. Can they maintain that form? I think you'd have to have Charlton in there as well for the reasons I've stated. Swansea, I think, could have a struggle this year. I just think it's always quite dangerous, you know, after a little bit of a honeymoon period, appointing the caretaker. I'm not enamoured with their business, but I'll just plump for Preston over Swansea, and I'm just going purely on recruitment, but also the back end of last season when they were in quicksand.
I've gone for QPR. You won't want to hear it, but they flirted for me. I know they had a good start to the season under Marti Cifuentes, but I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know. They've gone through periods in the last 2 years of some really dreadful form. And if they do it again, I mean, how many seasons do you get away with it? Playing a good kind of 20 games, 15, 20 games being enough? I don't know. I've gone for QPR. That was tough, though. That was tough. That 3rd selection. Maybe I did it because, you know, I got a soft spot for QPR, and it means it's easier for fans to abuse me.
I think you know, there'll be a lot of people's dark horses. QPR. I think that the business has been good. I mean, it's a bit of an unknown, the manager.
Good manager.
He's had success in France. Yeah, and I think just optimism because of the success, the relevant success under Marti Cifuentes. I think if you're looking for big movers, I think QPR will finish higher than they did last season. I would tip Derby to be a hell of a lot better in terms of points return this season, and probably Millwall. And I know they're always around the shake-up, but I think something's happening there. Obviously, it's a different way about it in terms of the signings. They've shattered their record signing, I think on 3 occasions in recent times, obviously splashing a bit of cash. So interesting to see how Alex Neil gets on, who's a terrifically talented coach, of course.
We're going to be arguing about Queen's Park Rangers all season now after that one, but Sam Parkin, thank you very much indeed. Appreciate you being with me. Remember, it all starts this Friday night.
Someone said Rob's in the chat. Where's he at then? Necessarily say Man United are screwed right now, but I'm not. This costs money. I don't see it as dodging a bullet. I think this is a phenomenal talent, and I want him at Manchester United. I think he's a great player in there. That old chestnut. Yeah, I mean, but it's the truth, though. Terry, can United afford 90 million whilst wanting a new goalkeeper and a midfielder? Well, you've got to remember, again, that's 90 million euros, which I specified at the beginning. So in terms of pounds, you're looking there at 78 million. It's around 68 to 70 million pounds to begin with, plus add-ons. So can Manchester United afford that? Yes, we've already stated to RB Leipzig that we can. That is only going to cost, if you remove, you're talking around 70 million as a base fee. 70 million, you divide that by 5 years, that's 14 million pound. United have raised over 20 million pound through the sell-on clauses of players. All we need year one to pay Leipzig is around 14 million pounds. Can Man United afford it this year? Absolutely. So I'm not worried or concerned about that. We don't need 70 odd million pounds in cash in the bank to buy the player. That's not a concern. That's not a worry to me personally. Šeško has not picked his team yet. Haaland would be over 100 million if he didn't have a buyout clause. Well, this is also the way you've got to look at this. If you actually look at strikers, Gyökeres was so cheap because one, he had a buyout clause and a gentleman's agreement. Otherwise, he's a 100 million pound plus player. You look at what it's going to cost to get, and this is what's crazy, right? So you want to do the pounds example. Isak got 13 league goals last year, so 10 more. He's probably going to cost somewhere in the region of 135 million. That's 155 million. It's 155 million euros. Okay, so you divide that by 2. You're talking about just a similar, but you're talking about a price that's almost double that of Šeško for a player that, by the way, scored 10 more goals. So you've got to put it all into perspective. What 70 million pounds gets you now isn't what you got for 70 million pounds 10 years ago, isn't what you got for 70 million pounds 20 years ago. And it's important that we factor that in. The very best strikers in the world who are at the peak of their powers and have many years ahead of them, they're all being sold for anywhere between 120 and 200 plus million pound each. Mbappe's, Haaland's, Isak's as an example. So again, the money really isn't too much of a concern for me. And Nicholas Jackson, pack your bags, you're heading to United. I really hope not. The boys in the group chat are saying that. It's funny because Ches asked me tonight, like, what am I going to say if they get Jackson? And this is my message to all the Chelsea fans winding us up. What I'm going to do if Man United sign Nico Jackson, when you ask me to talk about him, I'm just going to play all your prop from the last 2 years, all the positive things you said about him. I'm just going to play your clips and then you guys can go, yeah, Terry's right. Sorry, I took a bit of a sore throat. I'm just spraying that in there so that I can talk. United should not bid for a player who hasn't chosen them. It's from Sam. Sam, I agree with you, mate. Sam, I 110% agree with you, Sam. I wouldn't bid for the player until he chooses us. I understand why Newcastle were doing what they're doing because they weren't the favourites. Newcastle United were not the favourites. They're not the player's preferred choice. And I think that that's a really, really important distinction for football fans to understand. I think it's a very, very important distinction for football fans to understand that that's why Newcastle are going down this road. It doesn't always work out for the club that's doing that early bidding, but it might in this scenario. It may at this point actually work for Newcastle United and turn out to be a fantastic piece of business for them. If they're able to do it, it's a coup. It would mean that United are going to get rejected. It's an excellent player. I think it will give them a huge boost. Abdul here says, Terry, you're not buying potential. You are buying him to come in and score goals now, not in 3 years. There's no patience. What does it say? There's no patience for your starting striker. Well, there's patience from me. So I don't want Man United to not make the right decisions because we've got some really insubordinate, immature online fans. Imagine your whole club policy is dictated by people like that, especially the ones who have no face and no name. That's just crazy to me. We are getting a player that's going to come in and play straight away, like Wayne Rooney. But Wayne Rooney and Cristiano Ronaldo. Now, again, I'm not saying Šeško's as good, but I'm using them as famous examples of young players that we brought into the football club. They came in to start and play in the team straight away, but we also knew that they would get better over time. You don't just buy young players and go, right, you wouldn't buy buying Belieber would improve Man United in the here and now, the same as Šeško would. But it's about what Believer's going to be in 4 or 5 years' time. Same when Chelsea bought Caicedo. Yes, he was a fantastic midfielder, but he wasn't being purchased there and then for everything he could do at that moment. It's what was to come. This is football. Sophie B here says, like Liverpool fans this summer. yeah, listen, I hear you. How you doing, Sophie? Sophie, how excited are you about this potential news that has come out? How excited are you about this potential news? I'd love to hear from you on that. Let's do some more of your comments here. I'm going to get Tom Little on with me in a few moments' time. The son of a bitch. He's here probably to celebrate. I know exactly why he's here, the old son of a gun. I know exactly why he's here. I know. No one can get confident over this. Do you know what, Soph? I absolutely agree with you. I think you're spot on. I believe United are the favourites, and I'm sort of confident we can get him. I rephrase what you say. I don't think anyone could be overconfident. I think it's fine if United fans think it will happen, but what I wouldn't do is start disrespecting Newcastle, Tin Pot Club. Why would he pick you? Equally, right now, if I was a Newcastle fan, I wouldn't get ahead of myself either, because there are those pesky little things called football gods that consistently come to bite people in the backside. But development and potential isn't linear. Rasmus had a decent first season, very poor second season, and you've given up on him. But you've got to understand why I've given up on him, Abdul. So what you're doing is you're doing a little bit of what I call a Staffy in 2025, and you're ignoring the rationale behind why we need to move on from him. It was my exact same reasons as to why I felt we had to change managers. We bought a player for a manager who then wasn't trying to implement the system that the players he was buying, the profiles that he was identifying profiles to play a system, but a system that he wasn't actually implementing. That all went to pot, and went arse over tit. The club was toxic and full of player power. Lots of players regressed. So therefore, my view is that we need to start again, and I think we need to strip out nearly everything at the club, including the manager, 85 to 90% of the squad that I said. So it wasn't just about he had a bad year, get rid of him. It wasn't along those lines. It was a case of everything was tarnished. Let's clear the vast majority of it out and we start again. When you actually look at young players that have been purchased at this club since that point, like Lenny Yoro, like Heaven, I've seen them progress. Xerxes came in. I've seen him progress. Ahmad last season, I saw him progress and become a much better player. We were watching him yesterday. Yes, there was a few mistakes, but you can see with the new quality coming in, he's a player that is going to progress. Dorgu's come in. It's a very difficult start for him, but he has got better. And he's had an excellent preseason so far, and I'm excited about what he will do. So from my point of view and perspective, I don't think it's as simple as just saying, I get your point that progression and potential isn't linear, but Man United are in a position where we can buy someone that isn't. It's very hard for us to get this thing of a win now ready-made player who's also at the elite of his game. Gyökeres may have picked us if we were in the Champions League, but we're not. And he wants Champions League football at his age. There are younger players that will look at United and go, I want to be part of helping to rebuild that. And we need to help them too. But yes, so I understand that there isn't a guarantee that he'll get better. And that's a risk we're taking. And no one knows that more than I. But I want to take the risk. I think it's a risk worth taking. We could buy Belieber and he go backwards. Because let's be right about it. Caicedo's gone the way we all thought he would. But we all used to all say Basuma was amazing as well, didn't we? Remember what everyone used to say about Basuma? He hasn't gone the same way as Caicedo. He just stagnated. You could go and buy a Belieber, and in 2 years' time go, fucking hell, it's Basuma. I remember having debates with people because there was a couple of players. One of them was Ruben Neves, who unfortunately went to Saudi, and I don't mean that rudely to the Saudis, but I'd like to see him stay in Europe. Everyone now, if you had the choice now, Basuma or Ruben Neves, I think most people would still take Ruben Neves. There was a time where I was laughed at for thinking that, Basuma is the next big thing. Now everyone laughs at him as a signing. So yeah, look, I just look at it from that point of view and perspective. I remember when we signed Morgan Schneiderlin, everyone, including me, were like, wow, what a player. It didn't work out. So just because everybody rates a player when he's signed versus, I'm unsure on him. We've all got, we're all just predicting. It's a little bit of a guess whether he gets better or not. I'm prepared to take the risk though, Abdul, and I'm honest about that, Oh, he's back again here as well. Last one I'm going to do from you, and I'm going to speak to some other people. What is it you said? Where's it gone? You're assuming that Ineos wouldn't have signed Rasmus. His stats were similar to that. Well, this is the thing. This is what I won't do. I'm not going to blame Ineos for something they didn't do. That's crazy, Abdul. That's ridiculous logic. I'm gonna blame. Imagine this. I'm gonna be angry at Ineos for a player they didn't sign because there is a possibility in a different universe that they would have signed him. Like, think about that. Just think about that. Like, do you know what we're gonna do, Abdul? We're gonna put you in prison because there's a possibility that in the right scenario, in the right situation, in the right moment, you might kill someone one day. What the fuck are you talking about? Come on. Let's be sensible. Let's be sensible here. But look, an update just for everyone who's tuning in, because I think we've gone through a lot already. There's a lot of comments that are flying in here this evening. So a big update for you all. And then we're going to start going to some of your calls as well. So the update is from David Ornstein. A new bid has gone in. It's 80 million euros plus 10 in add-ons. So 90 million in totality for Benjamin Šeško. The real positive factor for Newcastle United is they are said to be feeling very positive and encouraged. One by Leipzig, who right now, it says, currently favour Newcastle United. And of course they would. They've put 90 million euros up where United have made no official bid. The player hasn't made a decision, but according to Craig Hope and according to Ornstein, he has shown some further encouragement that he would pick them. That all being said, what's Man United's plan? What is Manchester United's response? This has been consistent from Ben Jacobs and from Fabrizio that have both updated tonight, and that is United have told Leipzig again they will bid. They will bid an acceptable amount, but they are waiting for the player to make his decision. They will not formally bid until the player prioritizes Manchester United. That is the approach that we, Man United, are going for. Now, my call to you guys is, do you think that's right? Do you think that is wrong? Is that the correct way for Manchester United to approach this? And who do you see coming out on top? How do you see this deal going? And again, there are a few people, because I've seen Staffy tweet this actually, that he actually thinks this is a bit, again, I'm paraphrasing what he said, but we're dodging a bullet here. Just take that money and go and buy Belieber. I'd love to get some more comments like that. I'd love to know what you all think and feel. But that is the latest update as things stand right now. There is a little bit of breaking news as well that I am going to go and get for you in just a moment's time. Let's take a little look at this. Now, this is a personal opinion from Alex Crook rather than breaking news, but he says, personally think the money is now getting too high now for Man United for another unproven Premier League player. Let's see what they do. And that is, again, is a fair take. Now, I disagree with it because I've rated Šeško for a long time. Go back and look at what I said when he was linked to Arsenal, when he was linked to Liverpool. I would love him at Manchester United, but I understand this take and I understand this view and I understand this perspective 110%. That being said, will it cost Manchester United as much if the player picks us? Because and this is one thing that Fabrizio has been very consistent about, very honest about, and very direct with. The bids right now are unimportant because the player hasn't made his mind up. So there is a scenario, and by the way, we've seen this summer already. Tom, tell me if I'm right or wrong in saying this. Was it with Ekitike or was it with João Pedro where Newcastle bid more than the club that actually won the player? I swear there was one of those scenarios with Liverpool, wasn't it? Yeah. So Newcastle put a higher bid into Frankfurt than Liverpool ended up paying for Hugo Ekitike. So just using that as a case in point and as an example, if the player says tonight, and I do think we're going to get a decision very, very imminently from the player, if he says, I want Man United, I only want Man United, I won't join Newcastle, I'm dedicating myself to them, it changes things slightly. But I do get Alex Crook's point. And a lot of you in the comments agree with it. A lot of you watching, a lot of you tuning in are saying, no, he's absolutely right. You're saying Man United shouldn't pay more. And again, I can appreciate that point of view and that perspective. I can. Some super chats here to go to. First one says 90 million euros is 78 million. It's 19 again. So over 4 years. Well, United will amortize that money over a 5-year period, or will depreciate over a 5-year period. Plus, that's 90 million, including the add-ons. So the add-ons are not achieved unless Man United, it will be both for Newcastle and Man United, it will be players scoring this amount of goals back in the Champions League. So actually what you're talking about here is 80 million euros as the base fee, which is around 69 million pounds. So even if we were to divide that over a 4-year period, that comes in at around 17 million. United have still raised enough money to get that done, my friend. Newcastle were trying to do what United did with Yoro. Yep, similar, but Man United already had an agreement with Yoro. We didn't bid until the player had already decided to join us, I think. And I might be mistaken about that. And if I am, let me know. Let me know in the comment section. For goodness sake, he's not a 90 million pound player. Well, he's not a 90 million pound player. He'll be a 78. He'll be around about 69 million will be the fee. 69 million is the base fee. So it's not 90 million pound, it's 69. Massive difference in them prices. Don't see how we don't know what he wants. Come on, not. Let's sure, you pick up the phone and say, Šeško, do you want us or not? I understand that perspective. I understand that point of view. It isn't always as simple as that. It isn't always as easy as that. It isn't always that simple in the sense of, and again, someone who's worked at quite a high level of business to business sales, sometimes you don't want to come across desperate. So if Man United are picking up the phone every day, you're picking us. God, they've called 4 or 5 times. Why are they so desperate? That view of desperation can often cost you, the player. So that's just one outcome and scenario. There are times, Lukaku, Chelsea lost him because they didn't call him enough over the course of the summer. So it can go the other way. But if he's also said, guys, look, I want 3, 4, 5 days to make my mind up, it stands to reason that you want to give him that time and that space to do it, because you don't want to burn the potential signing in that regard. I think you need to be very, very careful of that. I think you'll be very, very careful of that when you're kind of breaking that down and when you're going through it and when you're trying your best to secure the player. I think you just need to be, as I say, I think you'll be very, very mindful of that. I hope Newcastle get him. We need 2 top central midfielders. Well, it'll be interesting to see what Man United pivot to, because we've prioritized Šeško. Can we now go to a Mateta or a Watkins? Will that work? Will that even work at this particular stage and point? You know, with the kind of money we're talking about, maybe a pivot to a central midfielder or 2 would make a little bit more sense. That would mean Rasmus staying for the season, though. What I would like to see from the people that want the midfielders first is assurities that you will be relaxed if we don't score enough goals because we haven't bought a striker. That's my only ask of you all. The same as I'm going to be relaxed. I'll criticize the midfielders being bad, but I understand we haven't bought much in midfield. I'll know our midfield isn't going to be great. I understand the strategy, which is strikers first, probably midfielders second. So because I'm saying I understand it, I'm not going to sit there and go, I don't understand what they were doing. Well, we know what we're doing. I know, I get the approach. I might say the approach was wrong if it backfires. It doesn't mean I don't understand it. Fundamental distinction. Šeško doesn't want to say he only wants United, as that would blow his chance with Newcastle if it turns out we don't have enough money. Well, that's exactly what's being printed. That's exactly what's being said right now. So that's probably what United have got to do. Equally, there is part of me that sits there and thinks, well, if you don't trust us, if we're saying to you, listen, man, if we're saying to you, we want to bring you in, and you're going, I don't know whether they've got the money. Part of me as a United fan does think, well, if you don't trust us at this point, see you later. I'm only responding to your point here, but yeah. United have been a career killer for years. Šeško should choose Newcastle. Their striker has doubled in value. United give away players on loan. It's a very, very good point. And for many, many years, the players that we've bought have been atrocious, and we've sold them all a loss. The one key caveat and rebuttal I have to that is under new management. Because you could say the same thing. Why would someone join Newcastle based on how they used to be run? What United could turn around and show is all the players we bought last year and how many of them are starting to thrive and progress and are important parts of this team. There are some that I don't think we maybe should have got. You know, I get people's points on Ugarte. Now, in terms of what we need, in terms of progressing the ball, he hasn't been able to do it so far. Outside of that, I'm still quite happy with all the signings that we've made. But I do get your point. That didn't happen. Newcastle never made the last bid. I'm pretty sure. I'm only going by. I remember reading something about him, my friend. Watkins still a good option for United from a Newcastle fan. Oh, Tom, listen, I agree. If we end up with Watkins, I've said all along, I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to be panicked about that. By the way, people, around 4,000 people watching, which is amazing. But can you get that like button smashed for us now? Let's get this to 2,000 likes whilst we're live, please, people. This is about Yoro. Lil accepted our bid, and then we smoothed him and his family until he accepted. Lil also helped persuade. Do you know what? Now that you've said that, you're absolutely right. I got that wrong. You're spot on, mate. No, I do remember that now. It's just not it's an atypical way to approach transfers. It's typically not how they are done in the modern day game. Yeah, so if I agree, I think Yoro is looking like an excellent player. So there's progression there. There's no doubt. With wages, it will be 120 million euros all in. Yes, it will, but again, listen. If you start adding the salaries in of what Liverpool's and the cities are spending, you're seeing even higher. Because remember, their wage bills are higher than everybody else's, and a lot of that is because of the bonuses, and they're more successful, so they pay out even more. That's just part of it, And at the end of the day, it's whether or not you trust your scouts. And that's the one thing I would say here. The players that we've gone after this summer, I don't think have been. They've been, you could argue they've been obvious, but look at the teams that wanted them as well. Most of the time, we kind of rave about, like Newcastle since their takeover. Look how many good players have bought and taken a bit of a risk on. Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes, Isak, that other people didn't want to, and how good they've been. So, listen, I just really think this is my fear, right, of not getting Šeško. Is in 2 or 3 years' time, we're looking at him and we're going, fuck me, he should have been ours. I've just got this horrible feeling. I hope, by the way, if we don't get him, I hope I'm wrong. I hope he flops. I hope we look back and go, thank God we dodged that bullet. Although it will make me wonder about our talent ID and how we think we're going to progress and move forward. Stop pocket watching. If they can afford it within their budget, then so be it. So long as it's not illegal money. It's not about pocket watching. It's about getting the... It's really funny because I was getting into this earlier with Staffy and a few others about Chelsea being good sellers. And if you actually notice, by and large, most of the good sales that Chelsea have done, where they've made a profit, have been from players they bought at the right prices and on quite low wages and were able to move on. You look at a lot of their big money signings under Clear Lake, or the players that will put on massive money, they've had to sell them all at a loss or they can't sell it. You could probably show João Felix is probably the one example that doesn't quite work for. So getting players at the right money is key, and you should pocket watch to a certain extent. The biggest and the best clubs in the world do that. United have a 25% reduction in player wages not being in the Champions League. Absolutely. That's why I said last year, yes, we missed out on 100 million of Champions League money, but I think we saved a massive percentage of that by the players getting a massive salary decrease. Plus, a big percentage of that revenue gets taken up by actually having to host the games, pay for police, staff it, etc. So you don't lose 100 million. What you actually end up losing is somewhere.
Well, hello again, guys, from here inside.
Which is not great. You'd rather have that money, but it
Benjamin
isn't.
Sesko bulletin. Yes, big breaking news. I brought you last night from 36,000 feet above Afghanistan. I think it was at the time, but you are going to have to help me out with this. I think it's Tuesday. There was one viewer pointed out yesterday in a video. I'd said we're fast approaching August, to which the viewer quite rightly replied, it's been August for 4 days, pal, and so it has. But here we are, and I was flying back from South Korea last night. I was quite looking forward actually to having no Wi-Fi on the plane. There was Wi-Fi, and with the connection, the information came into me that there had been a big development yesterday with regards to Newcastle's pursuit of Benjamin Sesko. Now, what is that? What is the news? Let's recap where we are, where we were, and what happens now. As I said, I think it's Tuesday, and today is potentially D-Day, a big day for Newcastle in terms of getting that answer as to whether Benjamin Sesko is going to join the club. Well, what happened yesterday? Now, the news into me was that, and this is a significant development, because we knew of Newcastle's interest, we knew of an offer that went in on Friday night, we knew of Newcastle versus potentially Manchester United in the battle for his signature. There you go, I'm talking like a journalist again, for his signature. Well, yesterday it was communicated to Newcastle, my understanding, that Benjamin Sesko, it's early in the morning, guys, please forgive me, Benjamin Sesko wants to sign. Now, that's a big development, because so far, while they haven't been told he doesn't want to sign, they were waiting for news come down to the weekend as to which way it was going to go, Newcastle or Manchester United. Now, what I will say, the caveat to this is we do not know what Benjamin Sesko and his camp have said to Manchester United. So there is still that element of doubt, and as we always say, until you see them with the flag and the shirt with the Milburn stand in the background there, or the East stand, whichever it is. Again, guys, I'm losing my bearings here. Schiphol Airport, Amsterdam, Benjamin Sesko. Until we see that, of course, there's still a little way to go. But on the back of yesterday's news, which was Monday, that there was encouragement from Sesko and his camp, Newcastle returned to the table with RB Leipzig. And that was the big breaking news I brought you last night from 36,000 feet, that Newcastle were pushing hard. They were pushing extremely hard to get this deal done, to finalise the deal with the club side of things. And crucially, guys, that's the terminology that's being used with me, to finalise things, not to explore, not to progress, not to sound out, to finalise. Newcastle know now, having had that encouragement, and with the knowledge that Manchester United haven't yet, from what we know as of now, Tuesday morning in Schiphol Airport, haven't gone in with an offer to Leipzig. Newcastle want to accelerate this. In the need to know, they want to know. That's been the case for a few days now. They can't wait too much longer on this now. The Premier League season kicks off a week on Saturday. They've got a striker, the only striker really, in Alexander Isak, who doesn't want to be at the club. That is why they're pursuing Benjamin Sesko and others with such gusto. Now we'll talk in a second about those dominoes, because the dominoes could start to fall very quickly with regards Isak to Liverpool. But Benjamin Sesko, the offer at the weekend wasn't so much rejected, but my information was that the terms, the structure of it had to be looked at again. And that is why Newcastle and their recruitment team, they returned to that table last night, pushing really, really hard. I can't emphasise that enough, guys, the speed with which Newcastle are working now, which is why today, they don't want today to drag on to tomorrow now. If Manchester United are going to come, and of course, you know, some of this, could it be potentially a tactic on Sesko's side to smoke out that interest from Manchester United, a firm offer? Well, yes, it could, and we go back to what I said last week, that the information was, and that perhaps Manchester United was the player's preference. It wasn't that he didn't want to join Newcastle, but you're presented with two attractive propositions, and let's be honest, Manchester United and Newcastle United are both huge, fantastic football clubs. I can understand why to a Slovenian footballer who's perhaps watched the Premier League from afar as a young boy, that, you know, it might be a tough decision to make. You've got a lot of various considerations there. Newcastle give you the brilliant coach in the Champions League and everything else. Manchester United perhaps give you more money. So a lot goes into that decision, but there was just that feeling and that fear from a Newcastle end, because they do like him so much. They've watched him for a lot of years now. There was that feeling, that fear, that Manchester United might just be favourites to sign him. There's been a little flip on that in the past 24 hours, and there's hope and there's confidence, but there's also a realisation that if this deal is to happen, it's got to go and happen now for a number of reasons. They actually can't allow it to drag on and give Manchester United that window to get their house in order. If that's what Manchester United need to do, is they do need to move out Rasmus Højlund, or to move things around from a PSR perspective. Newcastle are ready to go. They're in a strong position with regards to PSR. Bang, the money's on the table now. The offer totaled £70 million on Friday. We believe now the restructured terms might have gone beyond that, perhaps as far as 80. Let's save whether that's good value for a different video. Honest take, you don't know, you know. There'll be opinions out there. People will say you've overpaid, or it's a fantastic value. You don't actually know until you start watching a player week in, week out. Really, I don't think, until you've got that vested interest in whether they're good or otherwise. So let's save that debate for another day. But I think what you've got to put your trust in is Eddie Howe and Newcastle's recruitment team. They haven't got many wrong so far, guys. If this is their new equivalent of Alexander Isak 3 years down the lane, well, wow, they got Isak right, didn't they? So you've got to trust. If that's the player they want, I'd back them to have done their work and be convinced that he can be a success in the Premier League, and when Eddie Howe's coaching and his staff as well, you know, to take his game to another level, as so many have at St James's Park. And that as well, that should be a big sell for the player, for a young player who, if you listen to the guys in Germany, is a little bit rough around the edges at the time, does need that work with him, certainly needs to work on his consistency. is what I've read and what I've heard over the past 48 hours. So where are we at now? It's Tuesday. It's a big day. Benjamin Sesko has given that encouragement to his camp that he wants to join Newcastle. And on the back of that, last night, again, the news I brought you from 36,000 feet, they are absolutely pushing ahead now. There's a renewed confidence. But while it isn't done, and while the Manchester United interest lingers in the background, again, it was said to me when I broke that story, all options were still on the table.
Hello and welcome to the TIFO Football Podcast. I'm Joe Devine, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Ruben Pinder.
Good morning.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Disappointed.
Well, I mean, don't give the game away. You're spoiling the cricket for people who aren't watching it, but I know what you're thinking, John. You're thinking, why isn't this guy 9? He signed a new contract last year. When he signed that deal, though, it did come with the understanding that if an elite club, and maybe we could argue about this, offered in the region of 80 to 90 million euros, then Leipzig would allow him to leave.
Which is presumably why he's still at Leipzig right now. Yeah.
Well, Newcastle's bid is reportedly 75 million euros up front with a further 5 in potential add-ons. However, Man United are also reportedly interested in Sesko, and the Slovenia striker yet to make a firm decision on his preferred destination, because it's been a bit of a summer for him, I suppose, hasn't it? He was monitored by Arsenal for a long time before they opted to go for Viktor Gyökeres instead, who they signed last month. Chelsea had also admired him for a long time, but they went forward
because he exists.
Yeah, because he exists and is a young striker. But they signed Liam Delap and João Pedro earlier in this summer. So I suppose options for Benjamin Sesko are, potentially the most likely one is stay at Leipzig. I mean, if he's signed a new contract last year, it's not necessarily doing him any harm. I'm curious to hear what you think. If your options and you were Benjamin Sesko, will go to Manchester United, go to Newcastle United, where presumably one would expect you would be replacing Alexander Isak, not playing with him, or stay at Leipzig for another year and potentially look for other opportunities, although a lot of 9s have been signed recently. I feel like I'm not sure which elite team is coming on the market next year.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the context of this conversation, right, is that both of the clubs that we're talking about here have tried to sign other strikers this window and not been able to get them. So Manchester United wanted Gyökeres, which makes sense given that he played under Ruben Amorim. Newcastle wanted Ekitike and then got gazumped by Liverpool.
Yeah.
So,
who could gazump them further and take Isak as well.
Yeah, much gazumping has been going on since I've been away.
Yeah.
And I feel as though there's been a real march on the striker market this summer. So it sort of feels to me that Sesko's, I don't know how high up the list he was for these two clubs ahead of the summer, but it feels as though, I don't know, I play fantasy football draft. And when you're doing the drafting at the beginning, because there's only a limited number of players, there's always a moment in your draft where someone will go for a goalkeeper, and everyone's like, oh
shit,
no, we've got to go for a goalkeeper. And so everyone just suddenly ends up with 2 goalkeepers in the next picks. And it feels a little bit like that's what's happened in the striker window. And I think that adds a sort of interesting element to this, because Benjamin Sesko is very different from the strikers who've played under Ruben Amorim previously. So this represents at least some kind of shift, I think, in terms of what you might expect Manchester United to be looking for. We can talk about how that would work out. With Newcastle, yeah, I think Newcastle is maybe the option I would recommend he go to, just because the play style that they have, I think, will suit anyone who can play well in sort of direct football in transitional moments. And I think the worry that a lot of elite clubs probably have with Sesko is he's young. He has incredible physical attributes. So 6'5".
He's 6'5".
He's rapid.
I didn't know that.
He has good feet for a big man.
Wow, he sounds like me.
Yeah. In many respects, that's the profile that I think that he fits into, the Joe Devine profile.
Yeah.
So I think in that sort of situation, I think there's a sense with which Newcastle could sign any profile of striker who would fit within those broader parameters. Manchester United, I think, is an interesting one, because usually what you see from Ruben Amorim strikers is guys who channel run a lot. So weirdly, Rasmus Højlund, I think, would generally consider him to be a good Ruben Amorim profile.
Yeah.
Someone who's going to run into channels, going to be able to hold the ball up, bring players in, make those outside to in runs. Šeško, I think, is less that. But then I think if you look at the players that Man United have brought in this summer, in Mbeumo and Cunha, those are both guys who can do that from the number 10 spot. So whether or not that represents like maybe a slight movement away from what Amorim's done in the past, I don't know. The other thing to say is, it could just be the case that Amorim's just going to, Manchester United under Amorim next season, just going to lean into being a super transitional team. They'll think we brought in 3 really good transitional forwards. We're just going to try and create those moments where we're attacking a lot of space, and if we do that, then it will sort a lot of problems that we had last season out as well. So yeah, I think both of these signings interesting, and I think both interesting because they sort of take both teams in directions that you might think are slightly different from where they've been. But I would maybe tend slightly more towards Newcastle, not least because Newcastle also have Champions League football. They also have I think there's also a clearer sense of what they will look like playing the way that they do with him in it, whereas maybe a little bit more uncertainty of what Manchester United will look like next season, especially given the season they had last year. Although I do think that no Europe for them will put them in a good spot for him too. So yeah, really interesting to see where he will go. What was the other option? Staying at Leipzig.
Staying at Leipzig.
Yeah, but potentially
but then the question there is more. I don't know, when you think about teams that might need a striker next summer, I feel like many of them just bought one. I don't know what the market is going to look like or the requirement is going to be for those truly elite teams, or at least I'm thinking, specifically in the Premier League. There's always the option, I suppose, that maybe this could be Harry Kane's last season at Bayern. Like maybe that's an option.
Real Madrid will be looking for a striker, it feels like, at some point.
What, when they give up on playing Mbappe through the middle?
Well, I'll sell Vinicius Junior, right, and then move Mbappe out wide, I suspect, something like that.
That was the thought, but then the question is like always.
Striker, do they?
Yeah, I mean, I guess Lewandowski is getting on.
Where are they going to find 90-odd million from, though?
You'd be amazed how you can find money.
Just down the back of the couch, isn't it?
Laporta's sofa has a really deep back to it.
The problem with Barcelona is eventually you run out of other people's money, right? That's the quote.
I would say, though, I don't want to... Obviously, I run the risk of getting caught in the same trap that people get caught in every summer. But whilst we know that Manchester United is a bad option for players to move to, because all you have to do is look at every player that's moved there since Alex Ferguson left, and how their career has panned out afterwards, you wouldn't necessarily want to miss out on being on the train heading back up the hill. I do feel as though there's a little bit of positivity around Manchester United this summer, this pre-season. They've made 2 good signings of players that I think will benefit the team, will score goals. They've weathered some of the worst blows possible last season. I just don't see a world. I don't truly believe they can be relegated, right? So I don't think it can get worse than it did last season.
So you're saying that
it can.
Saying that Šeško should just be positive that he'll still be in the Premier League in the following season.
I think we're about to watch Manchester United improve on the last season. I'm not saying I think we're about to watch them win the league or get back in the top 4 or anything like that.
Because we did this last week. Did you watch or listen last week?
I didn't know.
No, Joe's prediction for Manchester United. Guess where he put them.
I reckon he would have said 5th.
Well, I think he said. I think he started off saying top half, and then like 5 seconds later said 7th.
7th, I said.
7th. Yeah.
I think that's fair. Yeah. So I'm going to ask you, Kai. You're Benjamin Šeško now because you are basically the same height as him anyway, so you can understand.
The long hair is giving me the extra inch.
Yeah, it's right. Is there anything? You're a player. Is there anything about Manchester United this summer, going into a new season, that is maybe a draw, aside from the fact, of course, that they probably have a better training facility and a better I think one could argue that more players would be happier to live there than would be happier to live in the northeast for Newcastle. That is one of the reasons that makes it difficult for people to move to Newcastle, right?
Yeah. Also worth mentioning in the context of this that Leipzig will have no European football at all next season. So in terms of what the year or so ahead Benjamin faces.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like he is probably up there with one of the most exciting strikers in Europe. If you look at the teams who are interested in him and the teams who are tracking him and the sort of the list of suitors he's got, I think for him, the appeal of going to Manchester United is being, I guess, the man, the saviour. And like lots of players will have that in their DNA that they want to go, particularly strikers will want to go and be the guy.
Yeah.
And if you're the person who lifts them up, pulls them out, the phoenix rising from the ashes and all that stuff, if you're the guy who spearheads that, then you are a legend. And, despite, I think it's similar to how, AC Milan are still able to attract really good players despite the fact that they're not doing that well and haven't done that well for a while. It's because the name and the history and the prestige of the club is still a big deal. Like, as much as we joke about United being awful, and they were awful last season, and they've still got glaring holes in the squad, like I think the wing-back situation still hasn't been sorted. Like if Ruben Amorim's going to play that system, he needs better wing-backs because that's going to be crucial, and we still don't really know what's going on there. But if you're Benjamin Sesko, Newcastle is an attractive offer because it's weird, Newcastle, because it felt like they were a club on the rise, obviously with the influx of the Saudi money and lots of signings in terms of Isak, Tonali and those kind of exciting players, Gordon as well. But now it feels like that project's maybe hitting a little bit of a bump. And I don't want this to be sort of taken too negatively, because I think it's something that can be, they're still in the Champions League.
Sure.
And they have a really good chance of being in the Champions League again next season. But they're struggling to attract the big players. They're struggling to get the players they want.
It's not obvious to see where the next step up comes from.
Exactly. I can't see Newcastle necessarily being a league challenging team within the next 2 or 3 years, which at 22, Sesko will probably want to be thinking about. I can't see that with Man United, but you can see it being a thing more, maybe, in the sense that they're a massive club.
You can see them getting better, improving on last season.
Definitely.
I don't know if you can see that with Newcastle.
Newcastle's trajectory is so delicate, though, isn't it? It's like they missed out on a lot of transfer targets already this season. James Trafford recently, which is why they pivoted to Ramsdale. Joao Pedro, they were linked with, and Burma would have been perfect for them. If a couple of these come off, maybe Isak doesn't agitate to move as much. The trajectory continues on a kind of upward positive momentum. Miss out on a couple of those, suddenly Isak now agitating to leave, and then new transfer targets therefore go, I don't know if I want, because it's still all relatively new. Whereas, like Kai kind of explains, the Man United appeal is like longer lasting. It's a more...
It's like a honey trap, isn't it? It's like, if you think about it in this context, that all... footballers, coaches, potential managers, whatever, the only way they ever get to the position where they might be offered a job like to manage Manchester United is if they're completely insane and they've like dedicated their life and their career to total self-belief and all of the other, crazy like mental gymnastics that these athletes have to go through in order to put themselves in those positions. Otherwise, you're just not there, right? And then you sort of multiply that with this job where the narrative is undoubtedly like the best possible narrative you could think of in football. If you're the person to turn Manchester United around now, you'll be remembered forever. I mean, is there another job where the potential upside is so high? I don't think there is. I can't think of another story that you could take in football today where the story could be so high. So it's a sort of, it attracts these people and then it crushes them like a black hole, Kaya.
Yeah, one thing I would say, just at Sesko, again, at this 22-year-old stage of his career, that is a lot to take on, and it's his first big move. So does he want to be being discussed by Roy Keane and Gary Neville on Super Sunday every week? Does he want to sort of, if he has one bad game, does he want it to be a crisis? Can he cope with that?
Sure.
Or the option to go to Newcastle is, Newcastle's still a big club, but the level of scrutiny won't be as intense, and he'll be able to develop a little bit more slowly and quick and sort of away from the spotlight, which may be what he needs. But if like you say, if footballers have that personality and this abundant self-belief, a lot of them think they can be the guy who hasn't been the guy before. So yeah, that's the sort of dilemma.
Do you think you can be the guy?
Do I think I can be the guy?
Yeah.
No.
Like if you were, do you think? I'll ask you as well, John, because you're one step closer to a football coach than Kaya is.
Yeah.
No, seriously, listen.
Okay.
Do you think you could turn Manchester United around?
No.
And that's why he's here with us. not working in football.
I don't know. That sort of thing doesn't motivate me either.
Doesn't motivate you? The notion that you could, like, if the only thing stopping Manchester United from being Premier League winners again is you, that doesn't
John
motivate
McKenzie
you.
Away from being a Champions League club again.
Having everyone in the world know just how good your qualities are.
But I think for them, in that respect, I think the solution for Manchester United isn't going to be like a coach who comes in and turns things around. I think it's going to be like boring, long period of making good decisions in various spheres, like the market. But
sounds
also,
good. So I know the exact guy who could
care about that. You know, I don't know, and I think maybe this brings us on to the next topic on.
It does.
On the,
feel free to move us on.
Yeah, well,
subtitled Transfer Ick.
Yeah. This all started because I was asked what I wanted to talk about on the podcast today, and I don't know, I've just had a sense this window, and I preface this by saying it could just be that I'm getting old, but this transfer window has felt quite vulgar. In many respects, and vulgar in the classic sense of the term, in the sense of it's almost quite decadent and
right.
Gauche.
Ostentatious.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you feel sick.
No. Well, no.
Vulgar. Sounds like the name of a dragon, doesn't it? When you say it like that, vulgar.
Yeah, it's the sort of word where I expect it to have referenced some kind of tribe in the Eastern Europe in the Roman era, right? Yeah. The Volga tribe.
The Volga tribe.
And I guess the thing for me is that I was looking back on it and thinking, 20, 30 years ago when we were watching Premier League football.
Back in my day,
when everything was great.
Yeah. When there was only one game of football on telly a whole year.
Yeah. And it was the Community Shield.
Charity Shield.
Charity. Yeah. When charity mattered.
Yeah.
Back in
now
the day.
It's just community.
What they renamed it because
there was none of the money
there wasn't enough charity in the
utter woke nonsense. I was thinking back in the day, each team, the big teams had lots of good players, but most of the other teams would have maybe one player. Your squad would have loads of holes in it, and you would, get really excited about bringing in maybe a couple of players who might be able to fix some of the problems you have. But
sure.
It felt as though there was a sense back then that your manager would then get this sort of ill-fitting, ill-conceived squad and then try and make something of it and solve problems.
There was
that were
a
just
job
sort
to
of
do, John.
Inevitable. Yeah. Whereas now, I just sort of feel as though we've got into the headspace of, we've got these tactical issues. Therefore, we solve them in the market now, and it's
right.
And obviously that still requires coaching, right? Because a lot of these great Mikel Arteta, I think, is a great example of this. A really good coach, but clearly someone who uses the market to try and address issues that he sees in the previous season.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if maybe I'm just wildly nostalgic and misreading this, but I did sort of feel I feel as though now there's less scope given for coaches to be able to fix those problems.
I wonder, though. I think that's an interesting point, and it is possibly true. But Kyra and I were talking about this the other day. I think we're going to make a video about it. We haven't started writing the script yet, but we talked about it. Do you remember the idea about how as sports take on more and more analytics and start to use data more, there's a period of time where, we'll put it this way. No one's using any data, right? And then it's all even. Except the only differentiator really is the let's say in this example, like the coach and how you use the players to make the difference and whatever, or at least in the data example that you have smart people who are able to sort of interpret what they're seeing anecdotally. They might not have the data to back it up, but they can say, oh well, our striker isn't scoring very many goals, but I know the striker to be a good goal scorer.
So stats versus eye test, basically.
Yeah, so it's like using eye test instead, and then. Data was the ability to collate data and then to use it was created, and obviously other sports first and then comes to football, and teams start to use it and they start to notice things that they otherwise didn't notice, right? Then there's
like what?
Like I don't know, stuff in the aggregate. I don't fucking know. I don't know, but they clearly are, right? Or like maybe for recruitment purposes, they're like able to see, or there's a kid in a league that we're not actually following, but like maybe would be worth watching. That sort of thing. Then in my hypothetical, there's 100 years where every football team that can afford to use this at the top level takes it on board and hires enough people, and the slow bureaucratic turnover of like the perspective and of those sorts of companies, how long it takes them, 100 years. And then when you get to the other end of it, every team is basically using data in the same way to the maximum level of efficiency, and therefore there are not really any more minor gains to be found. Once you're at that point, it starts to go back to the other way, where like now there's a new flaw. You now need smart humans again to make assessments and observations that the data can't make. And I wonder if with the coaches it's kind of the same, right? Like we've just been through an incredible period of upskilling of coaching in the Premier League, for example, where almost every coach is incredible, like absolutely amazing at their job. The best maybe 20 coaches in the world, you could make an argument, right? So there's only the very few gains to be found because things are happening at such an efficient level already that really the only place left to find those extra gains is in the transfer market, bringing in a new element, adding a new element. Could that be the argument as to why this is the case?
I have a few things to say on this. I think for me, the biggest thing, the biggest area where data has an influence is, as you say, on recruitment, right? It's making everyone who is a potential talent available at the click of a button. That doesn't mean to say that, when you find someone in the Ecuadorian league and look at them, that they'll necessarily end up being, a top level elite European player.
Yeah.
But it makes them like viewed in some way. And usually what will then happen is that you will send your technical scouts out there to watch them or do video scouting. So I do think that, I don't think that, and this is maybe controversial, and it has been controversial in the past, but I don't think that data has really changed the way that we view football in any way. I think from a tactical point of view, there's not many areas where what we have learned from the data has actually evolved the game in any way. Generally speaking, I think the game evolves because something happens and then coaches and players and this happens within various regions and then it sort of cross-pollinates. They find solutions to problems, and then that's where the tactical evolution of the game happens.
Could that be about to change, though? Because you and I both know somebody who's working on something which is completely different to this.
That's so...
using artificial intelligence.
Potentially, I think. So the rise of tracking data, the rise of machine learning, these sorts of aspects could definitely have an impact on the way that we view the game. But right now, I don't think that data has done a huge amount in terms of changing the way we view the mechanics of the game itself.
From a coaching perspective.
Yeah. But in terms of recruitment, obviously, I think, and what that's done is it's made teams better equipped to actually recruit well. And with the influx of money into the Premier League, I think now what we've arrived at is a world where every team has good players. Even the teams in the bottom half, like 5 or 6 good players like we said before, it would be 1 or 2, and you would try and make the most of what you had. Yeah. And I think the players obviously always going to be more important than anything else in football, because if you have the players who can do things, then they do things on the pitch, and that's essentially all you're wanting to do. And you're going into a game, you want players to do things, and you can augment that with coaching. But if you don't have the players, the coaching will only get you so far.
Sure.
And so I think what's happened now is that because we've had that shift now from like coaching actually maybe being slightly over emphasized or optimized when there's fewer players, because you can say, well, we can raise the ceiling with these players through good coaching, to now when you look at someone like Liverpool who signed Ekitike, Wirtz, and then maybe Isak as well, there's a sense to which you kind of say, well, all the coach has to do here is just put a system in place which is good enough for those players to be able to do the things they do well, and they'll probably
it's too
be okay.
easy for them, John.
Not too easy. I just think it's a different,
do you agree with John?
Different challenge, isn't it?
The coaching doesn't matter.
Easy. Coaching doesn't matter anymore.
I don't know. I would rather let John.
Spent so long trying to nuance that
I'd rather let
argument.
John finish his point rather than bastardize.
Oh yeah, get wrecked.
I'm also very distracted by the cricket.
See his eyes just keep going back to. But I guess my point is more. It's like a very different. Coaching has now taken a very different role, right? Coaching is now about making sure your elite players are fitting into your team as well as possible, and given the requisite level of freedom, without that freedom becoming so much that you lose all kind of structural, all sense of structure.
Because they're not managers anymore either, right? Even most of the time, their position of authority within the club, their seniority has been reduced because these other areas have been built up, and directors of football exist now.
Yeah. And this is my bias, right? Because I'm like a tactics guy.
Yeah.
And
you've got many ongoing feuds with data people.
No, the data stuff like is whatever. But I think what's really interesting is that in the modern context, what we're starting to see now is a lot of tactical conversations mainly being actually player focused. So even 5 years ago, I think a lot of the online community, you'd come across a lot of tacticos where they would be writing about, oh, this is the way that the team is playing, and here's the ideas, and here's how you can improve a team. Whereas I think even in the last 5 years, everything is now shifted towards talent ID, and player conversations, because that's where the value is, right?
That's where professionally the value is.
Yeah.
Right? Like in order for those people to ever work in football or find a job, it becomes inevitably about recruitment.
Yeah, but I'm going beyond recruitment as well, to the extent that I think a lot of the guys who now would talk about what I would deem to be like more tactics. There's obviously guys out there who are like, here's a player who's coming through, who's going to be great. But I think a lot of them now are thinking in way more individual terms about tactics than they are in terms of the collective, because as I was saying before, there's an extent to which if you have really good individuals, the collective aspect does maybe slightly wane a bit.
Right.
Wane.
Right. But it's why international football is still really interesting, because you can't just go and sign a player to fix a problem position. And I think that's possibly innovation that it could be coming in the future. That there's more high-profile coaches going towards the international game, like Pep Guardiola, for example. Once he finishes at Manchester City, I think he might be looking for a new challenge, and he might think, oh, well, maybe an international team could challenge me in a way that I've got this box of tools and I have to use that only, and I can't go out to the store and get new tools. I have to focus on this.
You love Thomas Tuchel, don't you?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
And that's why every international team has a weakness, which makes the tournaments fun.
It's what makes it so good.
Even the star-studded teams might have a crap left back.
Exactly.
That's their weakness. Yeah.
What's our new weakness now? England, because it used to be mentality, but now that's fixed.
It's mentality again, actually. It's circled round. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah. No, it's the lack of a line-breaking number 6.
Right.
Of course, that player does exist.
John Stones.
Adam Wharton.
All right. Well, there we go. That was fun. Listeners, leave us a comment if you can think of something that data has changed about a coach's perspective on football.
People will say shooting locations, I think.
Right.
XG. Yeah.
But I sort of push back against that, because I think
we always knew where to shoot from, didn't we, John?
Yeah, well, I think that's true. Right? People know that there's better and worse shooting locations, and that's not.
So we're not asking for stuff where data has just confirmed something we already knew. We're looking for an example of where data has told a coach something that they didn't already know about the way they manage their team, not about a new player they
It kind of fills in gaps that your eyes miss, right? Like you might see a player score a lot of goals and whatever, but then if they are taking shots from stupid positions a lot of the time, but you've forgotten that because of all the goals they scored, that is more helpful context.
Shooting locations have definitely improved.
Yeah.
And that I'm sure there is some extent to which now that we have the data, we can say to guys, this is why it's better to shoot from these dangerous areas. And I'm not a guy who's like, you should only ever shoot from the 6-yard box. Like there's context in which you should shoot from long distances, I think. But I think what happened is that teams got better at being able to get the ball into the areas where it's better to shoot from, and again, I think that's a tactical. I don't think Pep Guardiola was like in the early 2000s. Oh shit! I didn't realise that if we shot from closer to the goal, we would be more likely to score from there. I think his realisation was always like, how do we get the ball into those areas with a level of sustainability and repeatability? Right?
Yeah, that's true. Do you know my favourite tactic? Didn't have anything to do with data, I don't think. I think it was just a clever tactic.
4-4-2.
No, that's a formation.
Oh, sorry.
You'll never get it anyway, don't worry.
Is it eating chocolate?
It was a Sean Dyche tactic at Burnley.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
The funnel.
You're going to say like blocking. They would work it so that the opponents were always hitting the shots straight at the centre backs or something.
The goalkeeper.
The goalkeeper.
Yeah. Like they used to have this thing. I don't know how intentional it was, but it seemed to happen so regularly that it must have been. Where Sean Dyche, I think, had realised that it was beneficial if he could encourage the opposition team to just take more shots from distance. And he would make sure that his defenders always stood in a funnel formation in front of the person who had the ball, so that they at least had a clear look at goal. But at the bottom of the funnel was the goalkeeper, who would almost always make a save.
So you're narrowing the target.
And then stat pad all the defenders' numbers.
Exactly.
And then idiots who look at data and go, he must be good because he's made loads of blocks, overpay for their players.
Right.
4D chess from Sean Dyche.
There you go. Sean Dyche the king.
Another tactic I like that PSG, I saw them doing it in the Club World Cup where they take kickoff and just boot it forward into the corner so that their whole team can then squeeze the opposition into their own third.
Like NFL.
Yeah. Me and my brother have been doing that on FIFA for ages. We used to compare it to rugby. You know how like in rugby you might see a kick that kind of goes out of play right in the corner of the pitch, and then you have like a line out down there, whatever. I don't like rugby, but it's a good move.
Sounds like you do, Ruben. Sounds like you do.
And now teams are actually doing that to. They're voluntarily giving the ball away for like a territorial game. Which
your T-shirt's making me hungry. What is the pie on this T-shirt? What is
It's
this?
just a pie.
It's just a pie.
The pie in your mind can have anything you want in it,
It's
and
got
I know what it
cheese and potatoes.
Potatoes.
It does look like a cheese
Speaking
and
of which,
potato
welcome
pie.
back.
Yeah.
Listen, we don't talk about it. We said that when we agreed to have John back. We said we wouldn't ever mention it again. Okay, so do you want to play the separation game then? You said you had a corker for us.
Yeah,
Is
I
it
do.
cricket? Are you being distracted by cricket again?
England are 9 down now. With Chris Woke's going to have to come out and bat with one arm.
I don't even know what the score means.
Woke nonsense. Am I right?
Utter Chris Woke's nonsense. Yeah. Okay, let's tee up the celebration game now.
All right, the celebration game.
He's Freudian. This guy is Freudian.
Ruben, I'm going to have to come in now. Close the browser. Focus on the job. Come on.
Let's tee up the separation game.
Yeah,
there we go.
Mum and Dad. Mum and Dad. No? Sorry, I was still celebrating. I got confused. Yeah, go on.
One of these players is Steve's idea, and one of them is
Right.
my idea.
Great.
Steve suggested, for no reason at all, Mario Melchiot.
Oh, okay, yeah. I like to think about Melchiot. That's nice.
He was
okay.
Dutch defender.
Yeah.
And I scrolled through a few Wikipedia pages and landed on Jared Branthwaite of Everton.
Okay.
So, bit of a sort of 20-year gap between the two, I'd say.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, there you go. Listen, we'll go to a break, and when we get back, I'm sure one of us will have unfurled the mystery here. Enjoy whatever advertisement is about to play at you. Okay, we're back from our break. Ruben, over to you. Separation game.
Yes, I'd like to start this section by just briefly clarifying something from last week. So thank you to the listeners who pointed this out. I'm normally very good at picking this up. One of JJ's answers included it was James Milner supposedly playing with Gabriel Jesus at Man City. Of course, they missed each other by 2 years.
Right.
So let's amend that score by throwing in a teammate, a Fernandinho, for example, who
Sure.
played with both of them. Now that's over with. I'd like to know if any of you got it in one. No. Two? Any twos?
Two twos?
Two twos. Joe?
I didn't quite. I mean, I sort of gave up in the end. I not because it's not easily possible. I think it is, but because I followed about 4 different possible routes. Couldn't find the 2 that I knew these guys had, and so gave up. Instead, though, I would like to regale you very briefly with the fact that my attempted route took me through PSV Eindhoven, where Jared Branthwaite was on loan in 22-23. And there are some incredible players in the PSV team.
That was
of
Ruud van
year.
Nistelrooy's team, wasn't it?
Was it? I don't know. Yeah, it was. So Jared Branthwaite is one of them. Beyond that, here's other people whose names I recognise. Patrick Van Aanholt was there. Yes.
Palace legend.
Eagle legend. Eagle legend.
That's not a real name.
Ibrahim Sangare, of course, who's a player that Alex Stewart used to love and mention for every Sensible Transfers video. Beyond that, there was Xavi Simons was there at the time. Cody Kakpo was there. Torgan Hazard was also there. Nani Madueke, who's just moved to Arsenal, was there. Anwar El Ghazi. Savinho, who's now playing at Manchester City, was there too. Luke de Jong and Carlos Vinicius were there.
Wow.
I think that's probably about
He
it.
didn't win the league that season as well. Is that right? Am I right in saying that?
I don't know. Shall I check?
They won the cup, didn't they?
I'll check while you...
Was Götze there at the time? Or had he gone by then?
He was gone by then, I think. He doesn't appear on my list anyway. But again, like another player that was there around that time, right? Yeah.
Okay, well, never mind. Let's hear... Welcome back, John. Let's hear your 2.
This is quite a fun route, I think, because what I've done is I've done a going back in time route. So I've like gone too far and then come back, and I've still managed to get it in 2.
That's
and it's
impressive.
a player like Jared Branthwaite. He's only been playing since like 2020.
That's
right?
why I
So
picked him.
It's quite fun. So I started off with Mario Melchiot, who played with Victor Moses at Wigan.
Yes.
Victor Moses was playing football last season. Do you want to guess
Turkey?
where? No, in England.
Oh, he was at Luton, wasn't he?
He was at Luton.
Yeah.
Another person who was at Luton last season, Andros Townsend.
Wow.
Whoa. He
And
played one game
Wow.
in Luton last season, and Andros Townsend
Played at
overlapped at Everton with Jared
Wow,
Brantford.
that's great. That's
That
a
is
really
impressive.
good one.
I'm going to check if Andros Townsend played a game. in the
He did.
same
I
season.
checked it.
Yeah.
Victor Moses makes me feel old because I remember hearing
One solitary
about
game.
Victor Moses coming through.
Yeah, I remember being a really exciting young player at Palace.
Right, Palace youth ranks,
Yeah,
right? Alas, and then immediately afterwards was
you're checking
Zaha.
out Everton.
You know?
Yeah.
Did Branthwaite and
They
Townsend?
must have both played in the same. I
Well,
just-
Andros Townsend had a big injury at Everton,
Yeah.
so it depends if Branthwaite was at PSV when that
No,
happened.
21-22. He played 6 games for Everton. I will take that.
Oh,
well done, John.
Oh.
Very good.
Oh.
Kaya.
Well, it feels almost it's quite difficult to follow that now because that was so fun.
You were convinced there must be a one.
Well,
though.
it felt like there was a one. So the reason I felt there was a one, Mario Melchiot finished his career at Wigan Athletic alongside Victor Moses, also alongside James McCarthy.
That's that was my route. That's
Yeah.
why I was looking for a
Another
one. as well,
legend.
yeah.
James McCarthy left Everton in 2019.
Yeah.
Jared Branthwaite arrived in the same
2020.
summer.
Yeah. It's such a shame. That's the route I went down, and when I gave up when I realised that there was no point
Yeah.
just mentioning another Everton player.
Yeah,
There
I
must
just
be
chucked in
there must be a
Seamus
link
Coleman.
player.
I chucked in just
because they both played in like all the same kind of teams at some point.
Yeah,
so there
well, I
must
was
be-
looking up Jordan Pickford had a loan spell at Carlisle, where Branthwaite started his career, but that is irrelevant to the separation game.
Oh.
Just a fun fact, really.
Yeah.
That is a fun fact.
I didn't know he was there, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you both beat me because when I was creating this game, I had it in 3, but I also think it's quite fun. It's a real tour of the North. I went Melchiot, Wigan, where he played with Lee Cattermole, one of few players to tuck his shirt in. And he played with Phil Barnsley at Sunderland, who played with James Tarkowski at Burnley,
Oh, nice.
who played with Jared Branthwaite at Everton,
That's
and still
nice.
does.
Mm-hmm.
That Wigan team is one of my favourites.
It's so much fun.
Yeah.
Emerson Boyce.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Hugo Rodallega.
Maynor Figueroa.
Charles Nzogbia.
Kumas as well,
Figueroa.
Jason Kumas.
Oh man, what a great team
Geordie
that
Gomez,
was.
right?
I distinctly
United, one time on the show, I was saying, listen, United, at the end of the day, when they come, they're a big, big club. They don't care if they didn't win nothing last season or whatever. That Sesko thing is not a given he's going to Newcastle because United, he don't care that they're not in the Champions League. He might be looking, thinking, I could be the guy to bring them back to the Champions League.
On Thursday last week, Fabrizio Romano was constantly going, in the next few days, in the next couple of days, won't take long. I thought it'd be over the weekend. It wasn't. I think it will come either today or tomorrow. Sesko will go, I want Newcastle or I want United. But I think because he sat there debating, Newcastle probably offering a better financial package to him. They'll be offering him bonuses, like good goal bonuses, starting every minute. They go, oh look, we're the project, blah, 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 looking at blah, blah, blah. And then United are going, we are Man United. They are Newcastle. Pick. Like you were saying, like when United call, like it's a cheesy phrase, but like when big clubs knock, it is a different knock to when someone like Newcastle knocks. Newcastle have to present a better package for him, maybe financially, or promise him that in a few years' time he can then move on to a different club. Although, as you said before, those promises aren't always kept. So I think it'll be a case of they'll wait for what Sesko says. If Sesko says Newcastle, they will get that signing done within 48 hours. Because they've prepared to pay whatever it costs, contracts, everything, they'll just give everything. And if it doesn't, they will then, I think, switch to Wissa quite quickly. Because they need a striker anyway. Because what will happen is, if they sign Wissa, people might go, oh, there you go, now they're going to get rid of Isak because they've signed a striker. But they'll just go, well, no, Wissa's our Wilson replacement. Yeah, and they'll still sit there and go, no, we're not going to sell Isak unless you pay us the money. So I don't necessarily think the Wissa signing will have too much bearing on Isak, but the Sesko signing would.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how I see it.
On the Sesko thing, we'll go to United, who did win the Premier League Summer Series.
Big trophy, first trophy for Amorim.
Guess who won it first?
Oh, it was you, wasn't it? In
Damn
2023.
Right. Damn straight.
Yeah,
I didn't even know that. I'm not gonna lie, I forgot all about it.
Yeah, I think they did one in 2023 and then one this summer. I think they might be scrapping it because it lost 5.8 million this summer.
Why? Because they just had dead teams.
No one wants to watch that.
But yeah, it's like kind of it was on Sky.
Everton,
they were like,
Bournemouth, West Ham, and Man U.
Well, it's just like an extension of the Prem, and it's
Very
like,
competitive.
okay.
Yeah, like the
It's
mid-table
dead.
to
Yeah,
bottom
huge.
table
Best,
teams.
Best of the rest.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
It's 12th and down, really, isn't it? stage.
Finish fifth.
So Bruno Fernandes was quoted after saying we needed more competition for the players that were here, more quality to get everyone to step up more, and I think that is what the club are trying to do. Hopefully we can get 1 or 2 more players to help with that. You won the summer series with 7 points. You drew with Everton, but you did beat Bournemouth and West Ham. If you're Sesko right now, because that is the hot kind of talking point between Manchester United and Newcastle United, Sesko, if you're watching United lift up the summer series, is that going to persuade you to head to
I think no one gives a shit about the summer series, man. Who gives a shit, really?
No one.
Cool. I'm happy that we played well against Bournemouth, and I'm happy we played well against West Ham. The Everton game last night was, like Bruno Fernandes said after the game, he thought that points were a bit lazy, and he's right. But it's not more than that. He's not calling the team lazy and the squad lazy. I know there's been a load of fanfare about the word lazy, as there is, like, whenever someone says a trigger word like that, whole media world explodes when it's around United. I don't care that we won that trophy. United, if you go on their social pages, not a single photo of that trophy. The only one is like they did a collab on Instagram. But on Twitter, nothing about the teams holding the trophy. Because who cares? It's embarrassing. But it's just like a little thing you parade then, like the Emirates Cup. It's like, cool, but if Arsenal lose out, you're not going to have a restless night if Arsenal don't win the Emirates Cup kind of thing. Who cares? But I think with Sesko, who he picks depends on how much he backs himself. Going to United's the riskier option because you've seen Højlund not do well here. Striker situation has been a bit of a graveyard shift. Yeah, because Xerxes as well, he's played better elsewhere. The striker situation, it feels a little... Yeah, well, as I said, it's like a graveyard shift, or at least it was last season.
Cemetery club.
But if he backs himself, then why not go to United? Because there's going to Newcastle. Newcastle, with all due respect, I think have a bit of a ceiling compared to where United can go just due to our resources, the size of the club, the size of the stadium. So you can go Newcastle as more of a stepping stone, or you can try back yourself to skip that step, go straight to United.
If I was him, I'd be like Champions League all day. I'm going straight to Newcastle.
But that'd be one season Champions League.
How do you know?
No, as in he'd be 100% guarantee himself Champions League next season.
This question,
but then long term,
who's more likely next season to get a Champions League spot?
I think
it's
Man U. At least pretty dead even. If Newcastle haven't improved, and we have, like you mentioned, Robbie, at the beginning, Cunha and Mbeumo, two very good signings.
15th to 4th though is a massive step
up.
Who
would you go to?
The top 4? I'd go to Newcastle.
I don't think that. I know probably I get clown for this and stuff, but
if you're a player, you're going to United.
This is what I'm saying.
They're just another.
I don't know. I think Almiron and his system and the way they've played in pre-season, from what I've heard, it doesn't sound very inspiring for a young player. So I'm not banking on that environment being better next season for someone like Sesko. I think he might sway that way just because, like you said, it is Man United and there is like the whole pull power factor of you have the opportunity to kind of change the course and lead the line and become the new number 9. But if you're going with the smart option is obviously Newcastle.
No, this is what I'm saying. Newcastle is the more logical option, but it's to do with how much you back yourself to be a
I don't think so.
striker.
I think you can back yourself and still go to Newcastle.
Well, yeah, because you're moving up to a
you're still going to the Premier League. You're still going to a club that has lost a key player. You got to replace. It's like that's a big weight on your shoulders. They just won a trophy last season, and you're still backing yourself in the sense of it's Newcastle. Like Newcastle got big support. They've still got a big.
Newcastle.
It's not. Newcastle.
Being that guy at Newcastle, you still want to move to Liverpool like Isak has. If you're being that guy, if you can actually become that guy at Man United,
but it's not all down to you.
That is an entirely thing.
Being that guy at Man United is not solely down to you. It's down to what's around you. It's around.
Yeah, but he'll have more of that. So last season, Højlund had like Garnacho and then first half of the season Rashford and stuff around him. He didn't have great stuff around him because we were playing like shit. The players didn't understand what was meant to be going on in the club, and we finished 15th. I don't think we're a squad. Our squad isn't the 15th best squad in the Premier League. I don't believe that. People can, people can't. Like, I believe we have players who will perform a lot better next season and raise us up. I'm not saying we're top 4, not saying we're Champions League, but Sesko improves us hugely just because he's a good striker. The price tag is a whole other thing.
That's
another
my
thing
thing
to talk
with Sesko, right? And listen, this is not me switching. You can go and watch. Even when I was like, he was being linked with us, I'm just like, where do they get this fee for? What has he done to deserve what this 75, 80 million pounds for what? What's it done? I was always baffled. That's me. I always wanted us all along to get Gyökeres because I was like, Gyökeres proven. Is that Sesko's like talent?
It's a safer option.
He's great talent. His ceiling's high. Yes, we know that, but he's not actually. He's never even had a season where he scored 20 goals.
No.
Last season, I think he scored about 14.
13 in the league.
Yeah, I'm just like, how does that translate into?
And
some of
to
these
30.
prices are inflated. Ekitike, 80 million. Like he's had one great season. He flopped at PSG. I'm not listening. Before anyone starts, and not to say he's not going to be a great player. He's obviously very, very talented. I think you can see some great things in him. He's not a French international yet. He's had one good season. 80 million. They're taking a mick out of us in some of these clubs, aren't they? Over in Europe. Where
and then when it's time to sell players back to them, they're all broke. They ain't got no money.
Betis have made like 50 million in sales this summer and go, we can't afford 30 for Anthony. I'm like, what? We gave 50 million.
We gave Dortmund 55 for Gittins. Now it's time for them to pay for Chukwuemeka. They were like, nah, we ain't got the money. They've only just come back in now, understanding that it's permanent only.
Gittins, 55 million. He's not even an England international. He ain't played for England.
Didn't he score one goal in 28 games or something?
Yeah, right. How is he 55 million? I'll tell you though, they're taking a mick out of us, right? We're actually. I'm looking at some of these things and I'm like, how is that player worth that?
On Sesko's feet.
Not to say that they can be. Listen, they might come and fly, but I'm just looking at that's what I said earlier with Tyreek George. Tyreek George, Gittins, they're similar. How's it 55 million?
Where does Sesko end up then? Gun to your head, you have to decide. Newcastle, Man United. Where does he end up?
I think he ends up at United.
Yeah, I think United as well.
Unless we try and massively lowball, because Leipzig are swimming, right? They've got PIF-backed Newcastle in for him, willing to pay whatever they want, and they've got Man United in desperate need of a striker who will probably end up caving because we're not in a position to stand there and be strong in negotiations. They are swimming. And I think that's why Sesko's fee is suddenly 65 million. I think if it wasn't in this...
Supply and demand.
Yeah, this is what I mean. That's why I think Sesko's probably a 40 to 50 million pound player. Great potential, blah, blah, blah. Which is still 50 million quid for a 22-year-old striker. He does have like 5 seasons of professional football, but it's the situation. 2 weeks until the season starts.
Can you afford him? Because if Newcastle are
if you buy
desperate,
Garnacho, we can.
This is what we don't need to be doing. And you almost need Sesko to say unequivocally, I'm not going anywhere but Manchester United.
That's exactly what we did with Mbeumo.
That is the club you have to negotiate with. You can forget about Newcastle.
Still no bid, though.
But I don't know if
that's because we're waiting for his answer.
I don't know if Sesko is willing to risk saying like absolutely no to Newcastle, only Manchester United. When really Newcastle is still a very good move. And really the right move for Sesko. If we're talking about where he is in his career, going to Newcastle is probably about right.
We're gonna end up putting pressure on him in the next couple of days to say, right, we need an answer. Otherwise, we're just gonna move elsewhere.
I think he might go Newcastle.
Yeah, I think so as well.
You guys need a midfielder and a goalkeeper, and you all need that really before the Premier League starts. Ideally,
I know.
Are you gonna get these things?
I hope, touch wood, if we have settled on Sesko, and Watkins seems like he's not really available anymore. So if we settled on Sesko, and we're going to say we literally need to sort this out in the next 2 days, 3 days, I hope that we go, okay, if we're not getting Sesko, move on from striker. Go get a midfielder. I've been banging on about Baleba. I think all United fans across the country and across the world have been banging on about Baleba.
He'd be expensive as well.
But I don't see him costing. I see him costing as much as we would pay for Sesko, or maybe a little bit more.
Brighton, you know, they will charge you minimum £80 million.
But if we're going to end up having to commit, including add-ons, like 75 plus a 30% sell-on clause for Sesko anyway, I would rather, instead of us pivoting and going and overpaying for someone like Watkins or going and paying 40 million for Wissa, I would genuinely be more comfortable. Okay, reallocate those funds to a midfielder, and then because it's not like we haven't signed goals.
You should have gone for
Cunha and Mbeumo goals.
Okuchuku at Chelsea. You should have gone for him.
Well, he's just gone to Burnley, hasn't he? Yeah. Like I would really like it if we don't get Sesko because the club is so set on that. Like pivot and go and get a midfielder.
Instead.
Go and get should we turn up with a Sesko club card to Leipzig?
So, right, where do you guys think he ends up? Let us know.
Well, pre-season's finished, but it's not really finished, is it? But it is finished, and it's 1 week to go until the start of the EFL Championship season 25-26. The football is back. Welcome to Blue Monday, an Ipswich Town podcast. Well, plenty to talk about, Joe, and plenty of things not happening to talk about as well. We will get into transfers that have or haven't happened and why they have or haven't happened. But we do have a friendly to talk about as well, at least, Joe.
Yep, or as Mikel Arteta likes to call it, a test. He doesn't like the word friendly, so has
banned
it at Arsenal. He just likes to call them tests instead.
Oh, this sounds very high performance. Ladies and gentlemen, huge welcome to George Solomon, who's going to be joining us here on the flagship tonight and throughout the season. But we'll do more pluggery of that, George. Welcome to Team Blue Monday, mate.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Joe. How are you doing, boys?
We are all good, and we're about to talk about Auxerre 0, Ipswich Town 3. And I don't know, part of me always goes easy on friendlies after the Charlton debacle a few years ago and then winning the first 5 games after that. But much to read into this one. Joe, we can get into selections. We can get into people being not in the right mental state to travel maybe afterwards. But first feelings before we get into selection?
Well, it's just it was another big test, wasn't it? I think we've had a pre-season that has been sort of a lot of travelling in there. The only home game has obviously been at Colchester against Charlton in the week. We've been in Austria for a game, up to Scotland for a Friday night game, which I imagine is some form of trying to have a game on a Friday night ahead of the opener against Birmingham on a Friday night, and then out to France against more good opposition yesterday, top tier French opposition. I think they finished 11th in Ligue 1 last year. So, yeah, another test. And this one felt, especially for the first half, a big sort of physical step up of what we'd seen at Aberdeen, Charlton and Blau-Weiss Linz.
What is the what's the schedule in France? I think they start a while after us, don't they? Is that right?
I think they're only a week behind us.
Oh, is it?
I think so, yeah.
George, so we got from Mr. McKenna, Palmer, Johnson, O'Shea, Greaves, Townsend. Mattersey were with Taylor, Clark, Smodics, Philogene, Hurst. Obviously, we'll get on to Knox for the entire left-hand side of that 11. But A, are you reading anything into that selection? And B, do you think it may be reasonably close Friday night?
Yeah, I think at this point you have to say it looks like the team that he will pick on Friday, particularly because it's pretty much the same team that played at Aberdeen, I think, more or less. So I think Johnson maybe is the standout there, the headline. Like, he seems to have right back sewn up at the moment. Clearly Young is slightly further behind him in his pre-season. But yeah, I mean, that looks like the 11 that he wants to go with. And the majority of them, injuries aside, played a good chunk of the game. I think the big bulk of changes came about 70 minutes, which looked to me to be a sign of like, yeah, this is my 11 and I'm going to give him a good run out today.
What's your take, Joe, on the selection?
Yeah, I guess, like George mentioned, yeah, for me, the question mark is at right back between Ashley Young and Ben Johnson, whether Ashley Young will be seen as ready by the time Friday comes around. And then Leif Davis wasn't there yesterday. And then it's injuries, effectively. Other than that, it's going to be the changes from there, how they look from there. I saw just a comment pop up about Jaden Philogene being out for the season. If we can just say that is not true. We don't know how long he's out for, but you don't get a heavy knock on your ankle on Saturday evening and be ruled out for the season on Sunday. It's just not how sport and physio and injuries work. You have to let the swelling come down, get a scan. If he's out for the season, which is very, very unlikely for an ankle injury, then it would be a big blow. But we're not going to know anything about this for at least a week on it.
Yeah, we'll get into injury potential problems and whatnot. George, we were kind of watching the goals before, and I'm loath to. I don't want to downplay friendlies too much because I'm literally hosting a podcast talking about a friendly. But anything to say about the 3 goals? It was Hurst, a kind of straight ball over the top. Greaves from a set play, and Al Hamadi with the third.
Yeah, I mean, we had a chat before, didn't we, Ben? Just talking about the first goal, and I think a lot of people seem to pick up Taylor's ball as if it was a Pirlo-esque ping over the top and lovely stuff. But if you watch it, he gets a easy pass from Palmer, no pressure on him at all, strides out from the back, and there Auxerre on the halfway line, and he just sticks it over the top. So that wasn't that impressive to me.
You're in the pre-season Grinch here, George.
Yeah, maybe. Like the Auxerre guys, like no pressure on the ball and then ping over the top. And obviously Hurst, he looks brilliant in pre-season. And I think his movement off the shoulder has been excellent. So yeah, a lot of good, brilliant finish. But yeah, I don't think we're going to see some sort of Lee Evans-esque season from Jack Taylor based upon that one ball pinged over the top.
Hurst always seems to kind of look nice and sharp at the start of the season, doesn't he, Joe?
Yeah, and not last season. He got injured in pre-season, didn't he, last year? So it's one of those ones where if he can stay fit, he looks really, really sharp. You look at the pre-season now, played some really nice stuff throughout pre-season. So whilst this talk of transfers has sort of dominated the sort of narrative and discussions, played 4, won 4, scored 12, let in 3. And George Hurst has scored 4 goals in those 4 games. Ali Al-Hamadi's scored 3 goals in those 4 games. And I know there's a lot of talk about Ali, and a lot of it comes from myself as well in here, about is he going to be good enough to be a backup striker here or third choice, what we're going to do. But he does seem to find a way to score goals. Even though he looks chaotic at times, he does seem to do it. And in our previous championship season, when he came in January, played sort of across 14 games, but only played 293 minutes, got 4 goals, so 1.23 goals per 90 at that level, XG of 1.89 per 90. So he does seem to find a way of getting chances, getting goals.
Sorry, that was in the championship, was it, Jay?
In the championship, when in our promotion season, yeah. So he's had...
Whilst we were scoring 96 points and bringing him on whilst chasing the game every time, though. That must pad the stats a little bit, Joe.
Yeah, it does. But if you think in pre-season, he's had 3 goals. There have been 3 excellent finishes. All three of them have been really, really good finishes. So I think maybe he's one that could surprise a few people this year, because I think it's going to be very difficult to get 2 strikers done from here, because we know how difficult that market is. That he might be one that we need to rely on. Yeah, he might be one we need to rely on a little bit more than we'd have potentially liked to in an ideal scenario. But I think he's done all he could across the pre-season. And even like Jack Taylor, I know the goalie yesterday and the pressure he's under yesterday, but I think probably those 2 are probably the big winners of pre-season for how they've actually done when they've had opportunities. And they might have been 2 people who's might have been sort of looking one foot out the door almost, and they've sort of come in and done really well.
Yeah, on Taylor, sorry Ben, I think like the assist was whatever, but the he looked very sharp, and his pressing I thought was markedly different, and maybe they've made a real conscious effort to get him bedded into that position this year, which I think a lot of people still think he can't play the 6, but you know I'm sure that's all coachable, and he looks, he's had a great preseason, and maybe that's one of those where there's a lot of noise outside the club and we all make our minds up on players, but internally, there's been no talk about him leaving, and perhaps it's just like, he thinks he's going to start on Friday and he'll keep that shirt.
Yeah, and
you got to take on that, Joe.
Yeah, there does seem to have been a slight rejig in the midfield, where before there were sort of 2 deeper pivots, where now, since we saw Matasiwa, who again thought was excellent, really physical, getting about the pitch, he seems to be more central, playing across the pitch. And we saw this change with like Leif Davis playing as an inverted sort of number 10 at certain points against Aberdeen. It does seem that there is a slight different change, that the midfielder playing alongside Matasiwa is more attacking, more of a 8 than we've seen in any of our systems. And when you look at the guys to be linked with, sort of Jens Kjærst, Hayden Hackney, all these names seem to be players that aren't really one for defensive responsibility. So it does feel like we're having a rejig, and it might finally, 2 years after signing him, actually playing to Jack Taylor's hands a little bit more, because the systems never really seem to have suited him up till now. But it does seem like what we're doing at the moment is helping him rather than hindering him.
Anything to learn on the middle goal, George? I mean, an Ashley Young assist, but I suppose more broadly, it is a big season for Greaves now, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, always nice to see centre half get on the score sheet. I'm sure he'll be happy with that. But yeah, I guess the main takeaway from there is it was nice to see Clark beat his man on the halfway line and drive and then just to see Ipswich Town ball go into the box and get headed into the back of the net is a bit of a novelty at this point.
Just winning the header, mate. Don't worry about it going in the goal. We won the first contact. Happy days.
But yeah, I mean, in a broader sense, watching it, it was like, wow, it's 2-0 against the Ligue 1 side. We haven't really got out of second gear, and we're going in at half time 2-0 up, and just, yeah, I mean, we spoke a lot about transfers recently, and it's all the talk, but really, if you look at, like Jose, look at pre-season, I don't think the squad and the team could have done much more to give us confidence going into that first game. So, yeah, it's 2-0 up at half time and in cruise mode.
Anything on? I mean, you've spoken about Al Hamadi took the goal really nicely, Joe. Didn't you mention those stats? Any final sort of take homes on this friendly really, and the kind of group of them overall?
I think the one thing you really notice in pre-season is that Darragh O'Shea and Jacob Greaves look just like absolute Rolls Royces at the moment. They've got that size, power, pace, that you're almost leaving them just to defend as a pair at the back there, and they're doing it all. And I think just the difference between the Premier League and any other league in the world, that physicality, these guys are people who would be monsters in sort of any other league in the world, but because we've seen them in the Premier League sort of up against what you're up against in that level, you forget how good they are, and that might be part of the reason why the system's changed, because we can just take more risks at the back and just stick them one-on-one, knowing that they are going to be able to defend one-on-one against nearly everyone we play against. So I think those two, if we can keep those fit throughout the season, they're going to form this sort of almost like impenetrable partnership at the back there.
Yeah. Final friendly takeaways from you, George?
Yeah, I guess the one person we haven't spoke about in that sum up is Schmodix, and I think he's maybe not had the brightest of pre-seasons, and in light of the system changes, he seems to have settled into that central 10, and I think he started there every game more or less. So clearly they're trying to make that work. I've never been a huge fan of it because he's such a different profile of player to Chaplin and Amari, and maybe McKenna said we need a second striker basically, and he can go and do it. But I do wonder if it perhaps gives the chance to play a 3 in midfield if we ever want to. And we've got 2 very attacking wingers, 2 flying fullbacks, and we could potentially drop that central 10 out of the picture if we ever need to at certain games. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say he's kind of grabbed the shirt in pre-season and made it his.
It really looked like he was going to in that first one, that Blau-Weiss-Linz game. I thought him and Hurst had a really good partnership there. I think he set him up for the goal, but yeah, for the Aberdeen and the friendly yesterday, didn't really sort of get around and get the chance in the box, because you expect him to be a bit of a shot monster. A lot of things fall to him. He gets a lot of shots off, but really his game at Blackburn was getting in behind one-on-one. I think something like half his goals in that season were getting him to flick on, getting him behind, and the way teams are going to play against us probably doesn't lend itself to that, so he might get stuck back on that left, which I know he said he doesn't enjoy, but I thought he put in really good performances there in the Premier League and picked up 4 goals from that side, which in not a huge amount of minutes, I guess only Liam Delap would have had a better goal rate than him in the league last year. But yeah, there does still feel like there's questions across that 3 behind the striker. Like Jack Clark's played out on the right, but he doesn't seem overly comfortable there. But
well, the left might be about to open up, Joe.
Yeah, but then who goes on the right as well? Because we haven't really got anyone for that side, because Ogbene still sort of finds his way back to fitness. So that 3 behind the striker, I know there's one big elephant in the room here, which we'll get onto, but without that, it still feels a little bit up in the end. It still feels like we might need to let one go to bring one in, or let a couple go to bring a couple in, just to rejig the balance around for that there.
I'm assuming the elephant in the room Joe Fairs is talking about is a back-flipping ex-Arsenal and Chelsea player who we're going to hear all about after this message from our show partners over at Atwells.
Blue Monday is brought to you in partnership with Atwell Solicitors, your ideal legal partner for property and business law. Whether you're buying a home, starting a business, or just need legal guidance, our dedicated team is what you need. Trust our award-winning customer service team to handle your legal matters with care and expertise. Find out more at atwells.com or visit us at our offices in Ipswich.
Yes, good morning everybody and welcome back to Forever United TV. 5th of August, and this morning's show is going to be a blockbuster, jam-packed with tons of news. I think it's going to be a big day. It's going to be a reaction day because last night there was a bomb dropped. And it was dropped by Newcastle with a mega bid, an improved bid on Benjamin Sesko. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Garnacho and what Romano said. We're going to talk about Anthony's situation as well. Midfield situation that Laurie Whitwell was talking about also, and what Manchester United might do in the latter stages of this window also. But like I said, there is only one place to start with what happened last night. And it is a worrying sign for Manchester United that Newcastle, with all of their financial power and clout, have really put their foot firmly down on the accelerator pedal with Benjamin Sesko and RB Leipzig on this one. The night started off, and I'll go through the night as well in a minute and everything as it broke down. But as you can see, yes, we are live, kind of live. We're in a premiere because right now I am forcing the issue. I am not determined to make something happen in this transfer window. I think we might get it now. I've decided to go away again because every time I go away, it makes something happen in the transfer market for Man United. I just hope that this isn't going to be a bad something to happen for Manchester United. That's the commitment that I'm bringing you right now. I'm currently in the air. I've already been through every single bit of news, and it is massive. It is now at a point where we are going to get a decision, and that decision is going to come in the next couple of days. I'm going to tell you exactly why it's going to happen in the next couple of days as well. It's because Newcastle last night, David Ornstein dropped the absolute bomb of all bombs that Newcastle have come in and bid again for Benjamin Sesko. This time the bid is, and Romano backed this up, a bid came in for at least 80 million euros, Ornstein said. Okay, so what's that? Is that with add-ons? Romano came out after it and said, no, it's not. It is 80 million euros plus 10 million euros in add-ons. It has now got to 90 million euros that Newcastle have offered officially to Leipzig for Benjamin Sesko. To break it down into pounds, that's 70 million pounds guaranteed and 9 million in add-ons. 90 million euros. Newcastle want a response from Leipzig before Wednesday. That's what has happened. Everybody from Romano to Ornstein to Fjortov to Plettenberg to everybody who has been involved in this with any significance or a reputable journalist has said that this is where we're at right now. Newcastle wants a response from Benjamin Sesko. They're pushing on the club to make Benjamin Sesko choose Newcastle. That tells me the player hasn't made his mind up. So what are we waiting for? There is zero response from Manchester United. Are we going to get something today? Is this going to be the day where Manchester United show their hand? Still nothing at all. Everybody came out straight after that Ornstein reports. Where's United? Where's United? Nowhere to be seen. Still staying calm and still in control of where they're at. But then Romano came out and said that Manchester United have reassured Leipzig that they will bid for Benjamin Sesko. They are still going to put a bid in if the player wants Manchester United. And again, I'm scratching my head here right now. Newcastle know that Benjamin Sesko isn't convinced by Newcastle. Like, they've had a full day. Ornstein's report was in detail. Positive talks throughout the day Newcastle have had, and now another bid has gone in. Is that positive talks with Benjamin Sesko and his agents and convincing the player? I don't know is the answer to that, because Ornstein hasn't gone into detail with it. So I'm guessing it's the club, because they've gone in and bid again. And I think they're pushing the club to get to Benjamin Sesko. That's how it looks to me. Because Laurie Whitwell of The Athletic last night on Talk of the Devils podcast said that Manchester United are actively talking with the agent on personal terms for Benjamin Sesko right now. So that doesn't seem like this is a player that is hell-bent on making a move to Newcastle. Like, has he got this burning desire, like Andy Mitten said, that he wants to move to Newcastle? Why has he not said yes? They have put the money on the table twice now. Now, Leipzig are considering this offer. Now, what happens if Leipzig say that they're accepting this offer? That's changed from everything that Romano was talking about. Now, Romano's stance on this from last night was that Benjamin Sesko has still not made his mind up. I went then to check on what Florian Plettenberg said to see from his side, Jan Åge Fjørtoft. Jan Åge Fjørtoft at the bottom of your screen there is saying that Benjamin Sesko's preferred option is Manchester United. But Manchester United are going to have to show Benjamin Sesko that they have got the money to buy him. He will go to United if United make a bid. The problem now is Newcastle are trying to outbid United to a point where Leipzig are just going to say no because there's someone bidding higher. So it's quite clear right now to me how this stands. It's Newcastle's approach to this is we're going to flex our financial muscle because we know Alexander Isak is leaving Newcastle and they're about to get 100 million plus and then bring in another player that they feel is going to be the next best thing for what's available out there right now. United have come up against a tough opponent in Newcastle. I mean, Craig Hope, the Daily Mail journalist for the North East, was the one who started it all off last night. He said that Newcastle are pushing hard tonight to get an agreement with Leipzig for Benjamin Sesko, and then this happened. Fjørtoft actually backed up what Craig Hope said and said that Newcastle are pushing, but then Fjørtoft said at the bottom there, like you can see on your screen, Sesko prefers United, but he's going to need some reassurances from United and he's going to need some convincing from the club that they want him. I think it's all coming down to if United are actually going to bid or not on this situation right now. It is getting a little bit more complicated for Manchester United to make this deal happen now. And will they be able to get the price that they want? Now, that takes me straight back to then what Romano said. And so many journalists who reported on this last night. It was absolutely crazy when you read through it bit by bit by bit. It just escalated and escalated, and every journalist has actually tried to find out some information and then get a response from United. Nothing. So United are going to bid. Are United going to match £79 million for Benjamin Sesko? This is up there with some of the biggest transfers of the summer. This is something that you didn't think Manchester United would go and do again. Like, remember the line, we're not going to buy Mbappe, we're going to find the next Mbappe. This goes against everything that Manchester United really planned on doing. Are Newcastle, in knowledge of this, bidding Manchester United out of the equation here? Because if Leipzig are considering a bid from Newcastle now, which I think is sufficient, let's be clear on this, it is more than sufficient for Benjamin Sesko. He isn't the best striker out there in Europe right now. There are other strikers that have gone for less than this, who have scored double the amount of goals that Benjamin Sesko has this season. Ekitike is the same price right now. He scored more goals than Benjamin Sesko last season. Gyökeres scored more. Osimhen scored more. There are plenty of players that got more goals than Sesko, and he is now upwards of 79 million purely because Newcastle are absolutely desperate to bring somebody in from losing out on Isak and trying to turn their transfer window around again. And United have come up against this now. This is the first time I'll have to admit that I'm slightly concerned, even though the player, and like every journalist in this has said, even Craig Hope has said, the unknown right now is Manchester United's next move, because they've stayed very, very quiet. It is beyond intriguing right now where this deal is actually going. And I just think that we're in a position now where I don't think United are prepared to go. I would be shocked if United matched this bid. I would. I think that Manchester United are looking at this and going, damn. But we waited for the player. We didn't show our arm. We didn't want to get into a bidding war. Leipzig wanted a bidding war. And while giving Benjamin Sesko the time that he wants to make the right decision, they've allowed Newcastle to come forward with their bids and their money. And now we're in the position that we're in, where like I said, don't feel like Manchester United can compete. I don't know if maybe we will. If we go and bid and match Newcastle, are they going to go higher? And then you're talking ridiculous amounts of money. And this is where the United fan base will come down hard. It's like, right, that's it. We're not doing this again. We're not spending this amount of money on a player that hasn't got Premier League experience. This is getting to ridiculous numbers right now. And I'll say it again, 79 million for Benjamin Sesko. Pounds sterling. That's what Newcastle have put on the table. That is absolutely ridiculous when it comes to it. But Leipzig have always said they are only going to accept a price that they feel is adequate and what they think is right for Benjamin Sesko. In just checking through the news now, I'm just going to have a quick look and nosy on through it again here, because when you break this down, when you look at it, whichever way you do, it is, for me, it's just moving away completely from what Manchester United are prepared to do. I just don't see it. Newcastle are pressing for a decision from Sesko by Wednesday. No developments from Manchester United as of now. That's from Alex Crook. Can't see United being willing to pay 79 million. I'm seeing comments like that from certain people. It is absolutely ludicrous, this bid. Still cannot believe. God, again, looking at everyone, Plettenberg's one up here. Newcastle are now offering 90 million in total in euros. Benjamin Sesko 80 plus 10 million as revealed last night. Tuesday could be decisive. Newcastle want a decision, but Sesko has not communicated his choice yet. United are still there. Whoa. Today is going to be big. Today is going to be absolutely massive for Manchester United. It is. Are we going to finally come to the table on Benjamin Sesko? There is so much going on with United right now. Do we actually now have to sell somebody? Do we now have to get into the market and actually get to selling players so we've got a little bit extra cash? How much do we want Benjamin Sesko? Like, honestly, United are being completely priced out of the market here, I feel. I'm not confident. I'm really not. But you guys tell me in the live chat. Get talking. Get communicating. Please do get into the comment section as well on this one. I don't see how Manchester United can make this deal happen now. I really don't. I just don't know how United bring themselves to spend around about 80 million quid. 80 million quid. We're talking here. We're getting close now to record numbers for Manchester United. We're getting a little bit close to them dangerous days. I never thought I'd see a day when United spend 80 million on a player with Ineos in charge. I thought these days were over, but the striker market this summer has definitely opened up a completely different can of worms for what's happening this window. Honestly, I don't know how it got to this stage, but from what I've looked at and what I've said, I said it a moment ago, I think it just shouts out pure desperation from Newcastle's part. I don't see any other explanation for it. I really don't. They need a striker desperately. They're about to lose Isaac, and they've got plenty of money because Isaac's left. Is Benjamin Sesko worth 80 million quid? No, he's not. But have Newcastle got that much money to spend right now? Yes, they have. Do United? Nobody bleeding knows. And that's